I'm here. I have made myself push through for this event because I don't have time to be sick. Obviously, you can relate because you're all here as well, and we are here about our very, very, very sick waters. So we're just busy connecting everything to the live stream so that we can continue. I don't know if anybody has signed the registration forms yet, Tabile? Okay, so if we can just get that going so long, we can pass it on. Tabile will pass it through, and if you can just please sign that your presence is here. The names are already on, they're printed out. Okay, maybe give two. I'll give you some pens. Okay, you've got a pen here. Who? Oh, does everybody have pens?
It's video. Yeah.
What? Okay, thank you. So, okay, you guys must decide to come in after me. You come after me. Come after me. Okay. Gerard, are you happy if I bring Gerry in after me?
That's you, Gerry, and me.
Perfect.
You see, this is screen.
100%. Okay, let me start. Good and you?
Good, thanks.
Nice to see you, man.
Yeah, you too. Long time.
Yeah. All right.
Oké. Hoeveel bied jij aan? Hierop, ja. Doei. Ga je net vat?
Council in the City of Tshwane. I'm a resident here in Ward 65, so this Hennops is very close to my heart as well. And I just wanted to mention we have our Section 79 chairperson from the City of Tshwane for Environment and Agriculture. Maybe you just want to stand up. Thank you so much for being here. She is responsible for oversight of the MMC of Environment and Agriculture, so it's good that she knows what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there were representatives from City of Ekurhuleni and City of Joburg that did RSVP. I know Mosima is here from Advert, and I'd like to welcome her as well. And if there's anybody else that I need to mention before we start, let me know. I don't know everybody, so. Okay. Petrus, when do we start?
I'm streaming.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background as to how this event came about. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the various conferences and conventions that I've been doing in the past years, crying out for help because our waters. And so I had Mike Rubier contact me, and he said that he'd like to run a workshop and in connection with Gerard from Muscam, Gerard Prunier. And you know, we just got this thing on the roll. It was quite by surprise. It was quite quick. Everything snuck up on us, you know, quite quickly. But we pulled it together, and we had a phenomenal response. We were really quite overwhelmed by how many people responded with interest. So there's definitely a demand. So what we did then decide was just to reduce the amount of information that we're going to be feeding everybody today, because it's a lot. And we'd break it up, and there will be follow-up workshops from here. So my purpose, I'm obviously the host of the workshop. I'm Taryn Johnston. I'm the founder of Hennops River Revival and Deep Water Movement. Deep Water Movement is the sister company of Hennops, and it just basically allows me to extend my work beyond the Hennops. But that's all good. So what I want to do is really just explain from the ground what I see, show you what I see, what the impact that each and every one of us has, and also obviously the impact that we can make going forward. Because I promise you, I never ever would have seen myself here. Wouldn't have imagined it. But yeah, here we are. Is the screen happening?
The screen is the biggest stuff. I don't know if I give you a cable to some. I think it's in my cable.
Is JP here? JP? Oh, Gary's here. Okay, JP, can you help us, please? I think I might have to be on the Wi-Fi. I don't know. I'm asking him what's going on, but yeah, some wires. I have got a few wires loose. Not gonna lie.
Sometimes you have to restore. Sometimes I don't restore it too much.
Okay.
Yeah, I can find it.
It's just one.
Okay.
It's the worst thing with this project. You're in the hands of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so everything's in over there. Oh, there we go. Okay. Happening. Okay, perfect. Okay, morning. So I'd also just like to extend my gratitude to the Arini Country Club because they have given us the venue for free, and that is how you have your tickets for free. Tickets, no tickets. We're all here on Gary's account. Thank you very much. And Gerard is also sponsoring a light lunch afterwards. Okay, so just to, hello. Okay, thank you. Just to give you the overview of the river's impact on a person's quality of life, the economic development, property value, that's important, and obviously your municipal service delivery and the challenges that I can explain from my perspective. I don't claim to be right. I can only show you what I see from the ground. All right, so what I'm going to be talking about is a couple of topics. Hennops River, case in point. This is where I work, this is what I know. And then give you an urban rivers perspective on the river, or on itself, and then just about basic services, environmental impact assessment reports with integrity, very important, that integrity, and the importance of a reputable waste contractor, who connects to the sewer, and then how the funds, I don't know how the funds, but I will try and go over fund allocation, plant maintenance versus upgrades, and also the impacts of capacity overload and what that does to your effluent quality, which goes into our rivers, as well as your river quality and property values, and of course, stormwater, the absorption on the ground, and the impact it has on flooding. So the quote from Nikola Tesla, "You will live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension." I think we're all there. It's pretty mean. So this is the beginning of the Hennops right here in this picture. It is where two rivers meet. One is the Karlsbreed, one is the Sesmaelsbreed, and it's basically just here. So the two rivers start, and then you can see the one is algae, and the other one is not algae. I used to sing a song with this picture, and I said, "Sewage to the left of me, algae to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with poo." But that is not unique to this river, I promise you. It is countrywide. We've got a critical issue happening in all of our rivers. We did a number of tests over just before the rain season in the province, and not one of them were E. coli free. So to give you an example of what is upstream, and I'm not targeting Ervat at all. In fact, they have been managing their plants, especially the Olifantsfontein plant, very well. I've seen a magnificent increase in the effluent quality, but it's old presentation, so it's of the last year, and you can see from where the catchment or not the source of the river starts. It's clean. I'll show you a picture just now. It's clean. It comes out of the ground. It's clear. First thing you've got, black oil. You can walk there. It's that close. So within a couple of meters of the source that's coming out of the ground of this fresh, clean water, you've got a trucking company that's busy discharging black oil straight into a stormwater drain. And obviously that's hitting the wetlands. So it's like, what kind of a chance does this river really have? So obviously you can see there's a lot of red results here, and it does continue this. I only have Ervat results because they're the only ones that actually present. We have our Hennops River Forum meetings, And we don't get results from the city of Joburg, and the city of Tshwane in the most recent meeting said they were not allowed. So it was quite interesting, but nevertheless, as you can see, they do testing on various streams, on the 2 streams actually, on various places that make up the Hennops River. And it's bad way before the wastewater treatment plant. So your problem then is about municipal sewers that are being blocked by illegal activities. People that are sewage mining, they're deliberately sticking things into the sewers and going gold mining. You know, see what rings and things that have been dropped down the sink. That's a real occupation. And this is also still above the wastewater treatment plant, the one in Olifantsfontein now. It's a sand mine. It's a huge, big sand mine. It is legal. And this is what happens there. So you can actually see that when the outward effluent comes out, the E. coli levels drop. So they are diluting what's coming from upstream, which is really doing us a favor. So these are the factors that contribute towards the burst manholes, that contribute towards the fecal contamination. Burst manholes, raw sewage mining, illegal dumping of septage, which is obviously your honeysuckers that just go and do what they want in stormwater drains, and trust me, it happens more than you think. And then obviously the plants that run over capacity. There are a number of plants that run over capacity. Unfortunately, the wastewater treatment plants do not bear the say. They just have to process whatever's coming. It's quite hectic. I don't know how they do it. And then obviously you've got animal crops and animals upstream in agricultural areas where they're farming, and they have to clean the poo off, and that can also end up into our rivers. Okay, so there you go. There's your fresh source water coming out of the ground, and literally within eyesight. A couple of steps. That's happening with that black oil, like I mentioned earlier. So there's industrial waste. And this is why it's so important for industries to take it upon themselves to comply. Doesn't matter if anyone's coming to check or not, just comply. Okay, and then there's obviously a lot of inadequate basic services. So as cities grow, people come and they move, they want to get closer to work, and there are mushrooms of settlements that pop up overnight kind of thing, and unfortunately they don't have services, and it's encroachment of wetlands. There's a whole lot of issues that go with informal settlements. Sorry, I just want to drink. So, often what I've found is people who have services, like even if it's a registered informal, they will get services. But the thing is that it will be the owner of the property that will get a bin, and then he'll rent out the rest of the property to a whole bunch of other people that won't have a bin. So then you have another problem, because where do they put their rubbish? In the channels, because the rain's going to wash it away. Guess what? I'm away permanently. So we have got these problems with, there's also, I was quite surprised to find out that there's a real, almost a science behind this wetlands encroachment, and the people do their homework before they go there. They have, they find out whose property it is. They know if it's private, if it's government, and they get there, they settle, and they know that when it floods, they're going to be the first in line for the next RDP houses. So we have these issues too that we're dealing with. All right, so then the importance of environmental impact assessments with integrity. So there are, I've just taken snippets, I've tried to cover up names of the organizations and the municipalities as well, but some of them might be quite obvious. So you'll see here, a lot of things are allowed. A lot of things are allowed in these EIAs. And I like to believe, I could be completely wrong, I like to believe that it is through desktop studying. So you're not actually quite aware of what the reality is on the ground. So you assume, and then of course you will get your magistrate that will sign off, or the person from GDR that will sign off that EIA in good faith. Because he's going to try, I mean, the developer's developing, the EIA guy's doing his environmental assessments, the judge is judging, you know what I mean? So they're not focused on the river. I get that. But to bring the awareness to this point is critical, because that's a very, very important thing. I mean, here it says, confirmation has been received that sufficient capacity still exists within the wastewater treatment plant. It does not. And it's common knowledge. And it's not a secret. So it's shocking that people are getting away with building high-rise apartments with how many toilets flushing and not one person per unit. Then there's the shopping centres. Let's not forget about those toilets. They all flush to the wastewater treatment plants. And the development that is going on now is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And that's really why, part of the reason why we called this meeting today was because people have to start doing things differently. What we're doing now is not sustainable. We are going to have, we think we've got problems now. It's going to just increase, because remember, every river will lead to a dam, and that river, or that dam, will, a couple of processes later, lead to a tap. That's the reality. People seem to forget, but the truth is, rivers lead to taps. End of story. Not even debatable. So that's the short story of that one. So your choice of consciousness obviously means the world. And I mean that quite literally, the world. Because what we do here impacts the people that are in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Botswana. You know what I mean? Because the river flows all through there. It eventually ends up in Shasha, Mozambique. So we're not just cross municipalities. We are cross countries. It's an international river. And these are the kinds of things that are happening. It's industrial. It's business owners that are doing things either cheap and nasty, or just really don't care. Really don't care, or totally ignorant. Because that's what these are literally pictures I've taken myself in this very small little area. So what's happening in the rest of the country is likely very much the same. So I believe that impact assessments should be cradle to grave. That the environmental practitioners should be taking responsibility and holding the developer to account, holding the city to account. Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Until it's done. The money's paid. So it's things that really need to start changing. Here we go. No bulk upgrades are required. Yes, there are. There are huge bulk upgrades required as we stand. Huge. How do they say this? There you go, some little splashes of the monies that get spent and sent to the cities. Does it get allocated to the wastewater plants? I don't know, I'm not in Treasury. But, you know, the fees are paid. What happens then? I believe that the developers and the environmental practitioners need to start asking questions and just following up, because It's not going to happen otherwise. Okay. Who connects the sewer? I touched on this just now. So like I said, the wastewater treatment plants don't have a say. They just have to process whatever comes in. That's, it's crazy. And yet you still have your EIAs, which will say there's capacity. Or they'll just void the topic completely and say the pipelines have capacity. Come on, that's not fair. You can't talk about a pipeline when it's an entire plant. Then the pipeline is irrelevant. So, how do we manage that? Also, then we've got to touch on to the responsible waste practices, because we're the ones that are going to pick it up in the river. Everything leads to the river, everything. And I know that a lot of people like to blame the informal recyclers for all of the waste in the river. I promise you it's not. That is a minor contribution. They're doing more recycling than most of us, actually. So this is just a screenshot of an aerial view of a whole bunch of illegal dumping that's happening. And this picture in the bottom corner was so crazy. We arrived at this place looking for the river, and here were these kids, happy as can be, with these expired, dumped food waste. It was not cool, but they were having the best time. They were eating everything. I mean, they could have been so sick. They wouldn't have a clue. I mean, little ones like that don't know, check the expiry date or what those impacts can have on a person. So there's things that we, when you go the cheap way, we all pay. And that's the reality, These big blocks of styrofoam, that's from developers using dodgy contractors, because it's very easy to find a back road to the river. It's very far to the dump. It's very expensive to the dump. And anyway, most of our dumps are full. If you look at the latest landfill audit, we've got 13% of our landfills that can actually meet the basic minimum standards. It's crazy. So most of our landfills in the country are broken full. So we have to start developing a way to reuse waste. We've been experimenting with some ideas. I'm not going to go into that now, but we've been trying something, and I'm quite excited about it. Illegal dumping is common, and I mean that by common. We don't do that. We're not so common, but it happens very commonly. I'm sure somebody's even driven past an illegal dumping thing today, or will today. It happens everywhere. It's shocking. We get away with everything. We do whatever we want. No accountability. No whatever. We're a free country. But we're a free country, yes. But that means we are free to totally stuff it up, and we're also free to make the big changes that are really required, that don't require the government. Us as the people, we can make personal changes in our daily lives, in our business practices, and the way that we do things. We can speak to our families, we can spread the word. It's possible. Remember, we are, at the end of the day, much bigger than the government. The people are way more. So if we just all start doing our thing and stop relying so much. The worst for me is when people tell me, but I pay my rates and taxes. I literally just want to go, okay, so is that working out for you? Because it's not. It's not. So we have to change. That's undebatable. Dirty rivers are going to lower your property's value. I'm sure there are many of you here that know this well. just from having a property on the river. What we're dealing with currently is crazy and common. All right, and then obviously, the more you build, the less your ground can actually do what it was meant to do. You have less ground, you've got more cement. And that cement will channel the rainwater into your stormwater channels, and you're going to have bigger flooding. And then people go, oh, it's climate change. But guys, it's not. It's a lot of building. You know, there might be factors of climate change in there, but we are building to the max. All the sewers, all the water, any water, it's gravity. Rivers run on the low beds, the lowest parts, and the sewers run next to them. So that's just gravity thing. So obviously, the less your ground can do, the more is going to run off and into your rivers. So you're going to have bigger floods. And that's when you start having real catastrophes because, I mean, I didn't plan it for today, but I'll quickly touch on it. Like the illegal mining, the illegal sand mining that happens upstream. It's colossal. And it really, really disturbs the entire ecosystem downstream. It starts eroding and further eroding the soil that is within the river, and then you start having trees falling in because they can't keep themselves up anymore because they don't have anything to root into, and that's when you get your bridges blocking, and you know, obviously the rubbish just packs away on top of that, and then everything just goes over the top, you know. So there's just too much of everything. So it is quite important, and I ask that you just pause and reflect, because the state of our rivers is a direct reflection of a huge amount of pain, a very broken system, and a massive disconnection to ourselves as beings that are made up of mostly water. What we do to water, we do to ourselves. Be the change. The future started long ago. Long ago. All right. Water's love, guys. Love you. All right. So we're going to now bring on our next speakers. We are aiming to show you how things can be done differently. We've got a few speakers that are lined up. Is it Harry next? And then Harry's going to speak to ways on monitoring the water and keeping your, minimizing your wastage, your usage, all that. He's got very clever aqua intel. Do you need to plug in here?
Let's see if I can make the...
Okay, this is Harry Brink. He's from Aquafiction.
Sounds so low.
Okay, so let me get out of here. And then I'll close that. Oh, I'm on everywhere. Okay. Not picking it up.
Yeah, I'm working off my phone, so it's fine. You can take it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm doof. All right. Do you need water?
Yeah, in a plastic bottle.
Yeah. Oh, you got. Okay.
Only using one, refilling it at the tap. Yes, I don't think anybody can beat Terrence's passion, but showing us the reality is a call to action for us all to do what we can do, and not just jump in and spread the bad news, but see what we all can do as individuals and as companies to make a difference.
You fight with them.
See if,
I'm really passionate about it, and I have the same problem. So that's why.
see, that's my iPad is too technologically advanced to take any plugs, so I need to work off my phone. My background is in mining. I'm a mining engineer, so I think I did my bit to make the necessary damage. Realizing that we as humans actually do quite a lot on a massive scale for the sake of economic growth and human advancements, and we're actually doing more damage to prevent or to rectify previous, all the designs we had for human luxuries. We designed new stuff to rectify the impacts of the previous luxuries. So it's just a bad cycle. So 10 years ago, I started Aquafection, trying to rectify some of the damage that I helped cause. And being a mining engineer, you make trouble and you do damage by design. So that's your work, is to do the damage.
Jy's bietjie langer.
Pro so hierdie ene werk nie so warm nie. Hallo. So yeah, our mission is to obviously make a difference, and we've got because I'm a mining background, I sometimes struggle not to use swear words. It comes naturally. It's in your DNA when you work at the mines for a long time. So I'll try to keep my language above board, but if something slips through, that's the extent of what I need the message to be. So I started Aquafection to see where we can actually, based on all the stuff that we have, all the negative stuff, all the damage we've done over the years, what can we do to actually start step by step to fix it and to reduce it and get people to do something about it. And what we've seen is obviously the troubles in the world. South Africa is the 30th driest country, or in the top 30 dry countries in the world. And I'm going to show you just one image, and I think it relates to what Darren said, is we live in our own little box. And I've seen it with big industrial companies, I've seen it with small, I've seen it with houses, I've seen it with individuals sitting in a room, is we all live in our little box. Water comes in and water goes out. Where it comes from, you don't care. Where it goes to, you don't care. As long as it comes and as long as it goes, then you're happy. But the moment you start seeing the natural water cycle that actually keeps us alive, that's the thing that keeps all systems alive, all human beings, the whole earth is a living being, and the natural water cycle is what keeps it alive and what keeps us alive. And then we've got anyway, you've seen then you've got a human water cycle that sits outside of the natural cycle, that our influence on water and our influence on the natural water cycle, creating damages that is just almost irrectifiable. I don't know if this video is going to play. I'll try it, but let me try and see if it works. Okay, it's not going to work. Anyway, the video is basically the stories of water. First, understanding water, and that's where monitoring also comes in, but I'll get to that. We first need to understand water. I sat the other day with my daughters. We've got a swimming pool at home. We sat with our feet in the swimming pool, and I said, do you realize that this water in this swimming pool has been here from the beginning? Same water that in the time of the dinosaurs was there. It's the same water. This water might have been in somebody or in Einstein giving a lecture. Might have been on the battlefield with Napoleon. Might have been in the apple dropping onto Newton's head. It might have been some of the drops that with Noah's Ark, the big flood. All of the big rain events, all of the big water events in the past. Even as you're sitting here, the sweat in your mouth, the spit in your mouth, the sweat when you go outside. It's all part of that cycle. It's all the same water. When you're sweating, when you're exercising, that water ends up in somebody's pool 1,000 years from now. And that's the same water. And if we realize the stories of water, it's the oldest living thing on the planet. It just continues to be there. No matter how we try to distort it, it comes back and it gives us what we need. It's not judgmental. I always tell people, water doesn't need us. It doesn't need us. It's going to be here forever. It's been here forever. We need water. And if we don't change our mindsets about water and appreciate the stories of water, the stories in this bottle, there's massive history in this bottle. And if we start appreciating water for that, then we will change our mindsets to what we need to do and what we can do. We focus a lot on monitoring. Obviously, we look at the big issues, the infrastructure that's falling apart, the dams that's empty, the sewage in the rivers. But we need to go back and say, what can we do about it? Break it up into small chunks. We've developed a drop approach. It comes from the OODA loop. I don't know if anybody of you heard about OODA. It was developed by it's probably not the right forum or to mention America anywhere, but it was developed by the American military. And OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. And I think what Taryn showed is a big observation. In any situation, observe, stop and observe. And then orient yourself towards that situation. Make a decision and then act. Because we quickly jumped into action and actually make some things worse than actually making it better. So doing that action actually changes the situation. And then you go back to stop, observe, what was the impact of my action? Orient yourself to the current situation, the new situation. Make a decision and act again. And that's that positive feedback loop that monitoring can actually provide. Not just monitor for the sake of monitoring. And monitoring is not electronic. Monitoring is observation. Monitoring your children is checking that they're okay when they wake up in the morning, when they're okay when they come back to school. That's monitoring. Monitoring is being aware of what's going around. We quickly say we need to implement monitoring. So we can't do anything, it's costing money, it's costing nothing to monitor, it's costing nothing to observe. When you have a water meter, you can actually go and take a manual reading 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock the next morning, you know exactly what your consumption was. No money required. That's monitoring. So observation through monitoring is what we then developed is the drop approach. Based on that OODA loop, so drop is obviously bringing it into relation to water. The D is for data. We cannot just jump into action if we don't understand where we come from. What's the source of the issue?
Yeah,
And looking at a building like a shopping center is what's all the data influencing your water consumption? Is it water-based cooling towers? Is it irrigation? Is it toilets? Is it taps? Is it whatever you can think of influencing water consumption? And then your historic consumption. You've got the data. Most people have the data. You've got municipal bills. So you have your historic data. You know what your water footprint is. And the first thing I asked many people is, how much water do you consume on a monthly basis, daily basis? They say about 3,000 Rand a month. I said, look, how much do you pay for water? How much do you use? Very little people actually know how much water they use at their homes. Never mind at their businesses. They know we pay 3,000, 20,000, 100,000 Rand for water. They have no idea how much water they consume. And in Joburg, water is over 100 Rand a kiloliter. In Pretoria and most other municipalities, it's less than 40. So Joburg is almost 2.5 times the cost of water compared to most other municipalities. So if you pay 20,000 Rand, you use 2.5 times more, or 2.5 times more in Pretoria for 20,000 Rand than you use in Joburg. So you need to start getting your metric right. It doesn't help you monitor, and you monitor your bank account of how much you pay for water. You need to start getting a metric to say, and our metric is kiloliters per day. If you know your footprint in kiloliters per day, then you can work from there. And that's the D, the data. Nobody's got an excuse to get the data to say, I am a 10 kiloliter per day person. I run a 100 kiloliter a day business. Because if you've got that, then you've got a starting point. Then you can start observing to say, okay, so is it right, is it wrong? What we then do is the R is refined. Then you can install monitoring. You can get people to take hourly readings, but it is easier and it's actually quite cost effective to install monitoring to say, my business is a 100 kiloliter a day business. I installed monitoring. Now I can start seeing what does that 100 kiloliter a day consist of. Peak flows, where's the lows, where's the highs, how does it look the same every day? Is it Mondays different from Sundays? You can actually start seeing what that 100 kiloliters consists of. Then the O is options. Once you've got the data, you know where you come from, you see what it consists of. Then you've got options. Is there a constant flow? Does it ever go back to zero? If it doesn't, there might be a leak. There might not be a leak, there might be a toilet running. Then you start the options, the P's proceed. So then you proceed, identify an option, proceed with that and do it step by step. Because we want to jump in, and I see some of these commercial guys installing very expensive toilet systems. 24,000 rand a toilet, but they didn't monitor what the consumption was beforehand, so they don't know what's the impact of the intervention. So now you change your consumption, but water is interesting. It's the profile might look the same for this guy and that guy, but it's a totally different issue. One guy's got toilets running, the other guy's got a leak, but it looks the same. And I always say to people the difference between energy and water, we should stop treating water like energy. It's not the same model. It's not the same complexities. It's not the same variables. It's not the same at all. Water is unique. Water needs its own interventions. It's not load shedding. It's not solar systems. Water needs the attention that it requires. We can't survive without it. We can't survive without energy. So the big difference, to keep it simple, is when anything in this energy network fails, it stops using energy. The light bulb fails, no more electricity required. The power goes off, no more energy required. Anything failing in the water network starts using water. There's a seal failing, leak. There's a pipe bursting, leak. And 90% of the time it's stuff that we cannot see. We see, it bubble up somewhere, or we'll see a toilet running. We don't see it. You only see what's important to you. Your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain decides what's important. If we don't make water important, you won't see it. We focus a lot. One of the options we have is also training. And I've seen it's a lack of awareness. People want to do something, but they don't know what to do. They actually don't know the issue, and they don't know the size of the issue. And if you do know the issue, you don't know what to do. So the awareness, the first thing is, this is the value of water. What does water mean to me? What do I need? What do I mean for water? Where does it come from? Where is it going to? And then how can I get involved with the basics? Start doing the basics right. And it's a funny thing when we start working on sites, some of the feedback we get is, since you guys have been here, everything is leaking. And it's not us that created the leaks. It's just suddenly you see stuff that's always been there. The moment water is important to you and the bad stuff is important to you, you start seeing it. If it's not important to you, you won't even notice that there's plastic in the ocean or in the rivers, because it doesn't affect you. The moment you go on holiday and your whole family comes back with E. coli, then it starts getting important to you. But it's our family home for the last 100 years. What went wrong? Government again. That we give too much power to a system that's actually only there to be administrative. We need to do the work. If you can't even mow the lawn on your pavement or fix a hole in front of your house. I mean, we've become, nothing is my fault. I can't do anything about it. You can close a tap. You can report something that it's wrong. And following this process actually identifies that whole 80-20 principle. You identify stuff with very little effort that makes a lot of difference. As they call it, the low-hanging fruits. It's very easy to identify. It's very easy to rectify. And training and awareness. When we do monitoring and we do training, there's at least 20 to 25% difference in consumption. And there was no technical intervention. None. It was monitoring, showing the issue, and awareness, knowing about the issue, and knowing what to do about it. No intervention. It's just switching on the light and say, hey, he's cock. So that's the beauty of, we don't have to now run around and do interventions. It's just open people's eyes. Talk positive about it as well. We've got the issue, but now we need to do something about it. Because if we're going to continue talking negative about it, we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to sit and complain. So we've got that process, and it works pretty well. And then what our process does, and Gerard, the next speaker, will go into more depth of water augmentation, is if you follow this process, monitoring data, monitoring training, and you reduce consumption, all the capex required for resilience projects, backup systems, gets reduced. Because if you've got a 100 kiloliter a day facility, you reduce it to 50. You need half the size of the tanks. You need half the size of the pumps. So your capex gets down, your opex gets down, all of those things, and having that infrastructure then, which is actually a grudge buy. We're in this trouble, so we need to put our backup tanks. If you've got 10 days of backup tanks and there's nothing filling it up, then you've got 10 empty tanks. And there's no amount of money that can fill up that tanks. The money cannot money cannot flush a toilet. Money cannot quench your thirst. So we've got an attitude in Joburg and Gauteng that if we throw enough money at the problem, it will disappear. If we fill up that 900 billion required for infrastructure upgrades, put the cash in this room. It's going to make no difference. We don't utilize what we've been given. And it's like, it's always preaching to the choir. This is the guys that's actually making the difference and taking the action. But it's speaking positively about it and giving the tools and the actions that we can do something about it, because we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. People don't realize the level of trouble we have. What's coming and busy happening in Gauteng is going to make Cape Town look like a Sunday school picnic. And we do a lot of work for industrial, for commercial sites. And the money saved, if you focus on the kiloliter per day, our average that we get consumption down is about 46%. So we keep complaining about the 40% losses, non-revenue water, before it hits your meter, but we sit with a potential of 40, 50, 60% losses. What we can take responsibility for. And if we all do that, they can actually lower pressure in the supply system that's already going to take away non-revenue water with, again, no pipe replay. There's a lot of things that if we start doing it, it's got an impact on the supply. If we focus on demand, supply will, but we want to add on more supply, supplying an inefficient network with 80, 60, 70, 80% losses. So there's just a combined effort. We've got the Surplus Water 2025 movement. I had the dream when I started in 2015, if we get the right people and we do the right things, maybe we'll have surplus water by this year. But the year is not done yet. And getting companies involved to say, help reduce your footprint, because everybody's got something they're doing, but we're not putting it on the same banner. We're not telling the positive stories, and the positive reinforce positive. So with all these companies involved, to date, we've saved 3.8 billion liters of water. I think this presentation is a bit old. I think it's about 2 months old. So that number 270 is on just over 300 million already, and that average of 47. And it's not we have to do. Once you create the awareness and you give the tools, then people take ownership. They want to do something. They don't know what to do. Once you switch on the lights, they've got the tools and they've got the equipment to do it. So the surplus water 2025 is, there's another side to it, is if we can reduce our consumption by 20 to 25%, then we've got no water issue. And if we only get 20 to 25% of big water users to do that, then we don't have a water issue. And the nice thing about water, it doesn't judge whether you live on the street or you're the CEO of the biggest company in the world. Water is the same. Your reference about water might be different because you have to carry it for 10 kilometers. The other guy have a yacht, so his understanding and reference and ambiguity around water is a bit different. But we all need it in the same way. No religion, no color, no job grade is different. And the moment you start seeing that with water, it translates to a lot of other stuff in your life, with energy, with waste. And that's got a knock-on effect. If we reduce our consumption by 30%, there's 30% less water going down the drain. 30% less water going into our overloaded wastewater treatment plants. 30% less water that gets bypassed of overloaded wastewater treatment plants, and 30% less of dirty effluent water going into rivers. So it's got a knock-on effect by starting at home, closing a tap, telling people, listen, it's not that difficult. Just do something. It's actually pretty straightforward. So, yeah, it's always one of my favorite quotes is that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. We only need the people in this room to actually change things. Just start changing things. And I know everybody here is actually doing what they can. But we don't have to sell a lot of things. We can just say a lot of things and show what we can do. So yeah, that's basically my on monitoring and efficiencies. We don't have a water issue, we've got a human issue. So let's fix it and work together to do that. I think the next is Gerard. He's also a very insightful guy on water augmentation. And I always learn a lot from Gerard. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Harry. It's been a pleasure.
The river needs this.
Yeah, absolutely. and Karen is from Alaska Water, so he's going to speak to us about the on-site wastewater processing and various modalities that we can use as businesses, as individuals, just to reduce the load of those in the system.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to check at the back, are you good there? Do you have the screen? Beautiful. Now, Darren spoke about the state of our rivers. And Gerry had a very valuable contribution in the sense of consumption. And we'll get into a few more slides there just now. The main thing is we don't know how much we're wasting until we start monitoring it. What Gerry didn't show you, of being in his office, he's got some very nice graphs of companies that they monitor the flow and how they can see leaks, toilet leaks because of high flow at night and so forth. That also has a very good, it's a money saving, but also it extends the life of our water systems and availability of water. Now, in many cases, that will be the first step. because you need to know what you're using and where you're using it. And once that's done, and you can see where you can optimize your system, the next thing is to look at alternative water. Now, alternative water has become more and more important, especially in Gauteng, well, for that matter, Bloemfontein and Durban and everywhere else, because municipal systems are failing. Municipal systems can no longer keep up with the demand on the one end, and in some cases we've got some real failures in terms of maintenance. If I say municipal systems, we're talking drinking water as well as wastewater. So the drinking water systems cannot supply enough, as you know in Gauteng, and our wastewater plants that are either not being properly maintained or over capacity pollute our rivers. And that does affect us. Unfortunately, the concept that if I flush it is out of sight is not my problem, I'll show you how it actually becomes your problem. Let's look at the consumption side first. This is just a graph of water use, City of Joburg. This is where they're supposed to operate in the green line, Rand Water can supply on a temporary basis. But look at the consumption there. Now you wonder why our reservoirs are constantly empty. And that total consumption is not necessarily the user. Harry said we lose 46% in our networks. That's something that we cannot do anything about. And again, the media is often focusing on these things. They often talk problems, they talk negative, they talk down. Today we want to talk about solutions and what we can do to change this. Now, the next one, for some reason this thing is now not working. Beautiful. City of Ekurhuleni. You can see a lot closer to the actual demand, looking much better there. And then City of Tshwane, also using quite a bit more than the allocation. So combined, Gauteng is using a lot more water than what Rand Water is geared to supply. Now, some people were talking about the Lesotho Highlands project and how that's affecting the supply, and there will be restrictions because of the Highlands project. If you look at this, I've got some bad news for you. When they open that tunnel, when we get water from Lesotho, the problem is not going to disappear because we're consuming more than what we can supply within the network. So it doesn't matter whether we have 100% full dams. If we can't get that water to the user, we have a problem. And that's exactly what we have. This is the only Afrikaans slide here. But you know, the Supreme Court recently had to close because they didn't have water. Now, I know of companies as well, I don't want to mention their names here. But how many of you know of companies affected, or how many of you work for companies, your own companies that have been affected by the water situation? Staff cannot flush toilets, I see heads going like this all over. Staff cannot use ablutions. Customers, visitors can't use ablutions. So what now? So I want to focus on 5 different interventions that we can do. The nice thing is these interventions save us money while improving our water security at the same time. The first one, we look at rainwater harvesting. There is a myth, and I've heard many people telling me it's no use harvesting rainwater because it's not enough. Now, by show of hands, I want to ask 2 questions quickly. Who in this room has either backup power or solar power at their houses or at their businesses? Okay. How many of you run completely off-grid and you don't use any ESCOM, you only use your alternative energy? Only 2, 3. Now, that speaks volumes. Because on the one end, we expect of rainwater to take us off-grid, to take care of our total need, and if it doesn't, we're not interested. But when we do solar power, most people will use that to save money, to reduce reduce the load on Eskom and to have power when there's load shedding, but you still have an Eskom connection. Rainwater is exactly the same. It's not there to take care of all your needs all year round. But whenever it rains, you harvest some water, you reduce your intake of fresh water from the municipality, and you allow the municipal systems to recover. So the municipal systems become your Eskom. They then have capacity when your tanks are empty. And just looking at volumes that we can harvest. 1 square meter, that's about the size of this. 1 square meter, 1 millimeter of rain gives you 1 liter of water. If you look at it different, and you have a property with a 200 square meter roof, you can harvest 2,000 liters of water with only 10 millimeters of rain. Now, I did a calculation for a site in Limpopo not so long ago. They get 600 millimeters per year. Now, if you take your 600 millimeters per year and you have a 200 square meter roof, do you see how much water you can actually capture? You may not be able to store all of that, but even if you can store 50% of that, it speaks to water security and it speaks to you saving money because that's free water. So if we say rainwater harvesting is not worth it, think again. If you need bigger tanks, Chris is sitting in the back there, they do megaliter tanks, so that's also not a problem. You can store water. The other side of it is parking lots, hard landscaping, hard surfaces. Now, I don't want to drink water coming off a parking lot because often it's contaminated with oil and tire waste and whatever else. But you can use it for non-drinking purposes. How many square meters, now let me rather say how many hectares of parking lot do we have in Gauteng? And all of that water runs off into our rivers and into our dams. Then we say we have a water shortage. Now, I've been very vocal about this, both in City of Cape Town and Nelson Mandela Bay's drought situations. You know, in Cape Town, during the 2018 drought and day zero that everybody in Gauteng and worldwide knew about, City of Cape Town was still dumping 450 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Nelson Mandela Bay was still dumping 250 million litres of treated effluent into the sea on a daily basis. Then we say we have a water shortage. We don't have a water shortage. We have a water management problem. Cape Town is now about to spend 5 billion rand on desalinating seawater, which will give them 50 to 70 million litres a day. 5 kilometers upstream, they dump 60 to 80 million litres a day of treated effluent into the sea. But we say we have a water shortage. We need to think a little bit different. What can our parking areas do for us in terms of non-drinking water? If you look at flash floods, yes, our rain patterns do change. It's been changing for the last couple of thousand years. But flash floods are also man-created because when we have natural earth, like we have around the country club here, and it rains, the soil absorbs a lot of water before you get runoff. With roofs, parking lots and roads, every drop that falls runs off. So there is no absorption happening. And we create artificial flash floods. And then we wonder why we have them. It's flash floods by design. It's as simple as that. Now, when we harvest rainwater, very important, we now first fill our tanks before we get runoff, before we get overflows. And you're going to say to me, yeah, really, I've got a 5,000 litre tank at home, you think that's going to make a difference to the flood? No, it's not. But 5,000 litre tanks is 5 million litres. Now it starts making a difference. Now we start reducing our flash floods. So you see how this is all interconnected at the end of the day. And how what we do on site can have a huge positive impact downstream. What we just need to keep in mind with rainwater, it tends to be acidic, and you need to adjust your pH before you take it into the property. Brendan will tell you what happens to your copper pipes if you put acidic water through there. How many years before you start replacing them?
It's going to be a while, for 5 years.
5 years average. Then you'll start seeing water leaks coming through because you're putting acidic water through your copper pipes. Very important is that you do pH adjusting if you do take rainwater indoors. There's a few, this is not the only ones, but just a few things to keep your tanks clear. I spoke to somebody on Monday about this. And he said, you won't believe the amount of debris I'm getting from my gutters. I said, yes, that's why you need a pre-filter before you go into your tanks. Otherwise, you collect all of that debris into your tanks and you pump that. It shortens the lifespan of your pumps. If it's organic, it may cause problems with pollution. And it put a lot of strain on your filters. So there is your leaf catcher. There's also first flush that's not on here. There's these screens. That is a photo that I took in Cape Town. You can see that wedge wire screen catching even algae coming off a tile roof. You've got your top of tank filters. You've got your vortex filters. These are very, very nice, especially for commercial buildings. With a vortex filter, you lose 10% of your water because it uses 10% to flush out the filter. But you never have to go and manually clean it. So from a maintenance point of view, it makes a lot of sense. When you do backup systems, Gerry touched on that, people spending money on backup systems. You've got those 10 tanks standing there and they're all empty now. So what now? Now you have a backup system, and then you want to do a rainwater system, and then you want to do a borehole, and your borehole is dry or so contaminated you can't use it, and then you eventually, how do you manage all those systems? And we've got a very simple way of doing that. One of them is for your backup systems is oversize your tank. In other words, if you need 10,000 litre backup, put 20 or 30 or 40,000 litre tanks up there. If you need 1 million litre backup, put 2 or 3 million litre tanks up there. And your backup, you will set to a specific level so your municipal water will always fill up to that point. Whenever it rains, your rainwater will fill up the rest of the tank. And when your rainwater fills the rest of the tank and you start using water from the tank, you first use your free water. Now, City of Joburg, for commercial properties, charge about 64 Rand per kilolitre for water, and they charge another 34 Rand for sewage. Your sewage is connected to your water intake. So you're paying 98 Rand per kilolitre plus VAT. You're saving 98 Rand per kilolitre a year. But again, when you use this water, you allow the network to recover because you're not using network water. So when you're getting down to this level, there is water in the network. At the same time, another benefit is, let's say you've used your rainwater and your network is off. And you get a bit of rain, it will immediately top up this tank and you have water again. So it's a win-win-win all the way. You have one system, one pump, one filtration system, and it gives you a lot of peace of mind, and it saves you a huge amount of money. That's the lekker thing. Whatever you do here from an intervention point of view saves you money. Whatever you spend on central systems costs you money because at some point it's financed and somebody need to pay the taxes for that. So this is a very simple way of optimizing your rainwater system and backup system, joining it together on site. This is just a quick diagram. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have your water tank, you have your VSD control pump, your filtration, sterilizing, pH correction, and you go into the building. Now in this case, we're not filling a tank. This is a direct municipal supply. We have a direct municipal supply into the building. And if you set the pressure on this one higher, then that will be primary and this one will be your backup. If you set your pressure higher on this one, that will be your primary and that will be your backup if your tanks are empty or if the pump fails or whatever. So here you can still use this to fill up tanks as well. But here you have the best of both worlds. Because now, if the power drops, you have your municipal water pushing through. If your pump fails, you have your municipal water pushing through. You never need to go out and close this tap and open that tap. And whoever you want to get up 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter to go and change taps outside. This is a full automatic system. As I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the design of it, just know that it's a way you can have it hassle-free, like you have your electricity and your inverter that kicks in the minute that ESCOM drops. You can have the same in water. You can have your automatic backup system, a no-hassle system. Very important here is a backflow preventer that is not a non-return valve. A backflow preventer is designed to guarantee that your water doesn't push back into the municipal pipeline. And I was in a meeting in Cape Town where one of the developers said, listen, we've got a greywater system, but that's completely separate. And we have a municipal dedicated line. We want the city to exempt us from having to install a backflow preventer. Now, it's a multi-million rand development. That backflow preventer cost a few thousand. And I said to the developer, well, the city was hard, took a hard stance and they said, we tell you you'll do it and you will do it. I said, listen, son, what you need to understand is, if the municipal pipeline becomes contaminated at some point, you can stand up and say, it's not mine, I have a backflow preventer in place. If you don't have a backflow preventer, somewhere in future, a plumber may interconnect between your grey water system and your drinking water system without knowing. And you can have contamination. So that's something that's, for me, not even debatable. It's something that we definitely need to install. Now, if that system is set up properly, it will make primary use of your rainwater, or as I said, you can change it around depending on where you set the pressure higher. It'll use municipal water direct from the municipal supply when your rainwater is depleted or if there's a problem with your pump. And the backup municipal water in the tank will only be used in real case of emergency when there's nothing else. So it's a full automatic system, no human intervention required. It's maximum saving of municipal water because you're using rainwater, giving the municipal system chance to recover. And the more alternative water we use, the better chance the system has to recover. Which means there should be water in the system when we need it. This is a practical... Brendan, you're not allowed to laugh, okay? This was a retrofit. The original municipal supply came under the floor there. This is from the rainwater tanks. The washing machine is this side and the toilet supply is going that way. So the issue backflow preventer, you can see it's significantly bigger than a non-return valve. There is a pressure reducing valve. So what happens is the pressure from the tanks is set higher, so the tanks will always be first priority. And if the tanks cut out because the tanks are empty, automatically municipal water will push through to the toilets but also back down this pipe to feed the washing machine. Very simple installation. It was done by an OPSA-approved installer. So don't have to worry about that. In this case, you can see that tap is closed, so the tank supply is now cut off to the toilets. There was some maintenance done at that point. But this is a very, very easy way of doing it. and you know you have a hassle-free system for the rest of your life. So my message here is, it doesn't have to be a problematic system. It doesn't have to, oh, I've got to remember to do this, and I must, when it rains, I must go, nobody's going to do that. So just looking at 3 case studies. The first one is, well, the first 2 are single residentials, and the third one looking at a commercial building. Here the customer installed that wire mesh screen that I showed you. It was the most practical for this application. You can see that cover can open there so you can clean the screen. And then you have the downpipe. You made a few changes to these gutters. The downpipe will feed into an underground tank. He actually split his pool into 2 halves. And the one half you made a rainwater collection tank with fake grass on there. And then the pool with the sliding deck obviously reducing evaporation. And that's his backup water system there. So it looks very neat, it's practical, it's simple to operate. And even if you look at the pressure pump, we've got the city pump, submersible booster pump in there. And you can't even see that once you put that patch of grass on there. You can't even see it. Beautiful backup system that they built there. The second one was a bit more difficult, because there's a downpipe going to the street. There are 3 downpipes here also running to the street at the back. So all that water is wasted from sight. Now in Cape Town at one point there was a bylaw that told you must take your rainwater to the street. You were not allowed to capture it many years back. So to get this for rainwater harvesting, you can see this is a double story here, that's single story there, this is a flat roof dropping this way, this gutter is going that way. How on earth are you going to manage rainwater harvesting there? It becomes almost impossible. Agree? Okay, the solution was a roof over here, which had to happen anyway, but then a roof at the back here, which made a big difference. So the gutter from this roof could drop back onto that one. This downpipe could drop onto that one. Because it's double story, that downpipe could be diverted over the notch here onto that one. This one drops back automatically, and the angle of this gutter was changed to drop to the back and not to the front. The only water we couldn't capture in the central system was from that part of the roof. If we had to do that, we wouldn't need a pump to pump it through. So if we look at it from a practical point of view, there you can see the double story pipe diverted. This was the part we couldn't capture, so that goes into a 1,000-litre tank that is used for car washing, filling a water feature and stuff like that. And then at the back, you see that pipe coming in, you see that pipe coming in, the one on the left where the angle is changed, and everything dropping onto this roof. And from that roof, you've got a 110 pipe down to the water tanks. Small investment, but without pumping, you catch all of your rainwater. In this case, it's about 250 square meters of roof. So 30 millimeters of rain, you harvest 7,500 liters. Can you do a 7,500 liters every time it rains? Makes a difference, eh? You now think rainwater harvesting makes sense? You think it's worth it? I think half of my audience is asleep. Okay, then the Sun House went a bit further, installed the grey water system that catch everything from the bathrooms and the washing machine, except for the toilets. And that grey water is going into the garden for irrigation purposes. So now you have free rainwater coming down, which you harvest. You use it in the house, you discharge it as grey water, you harvest that again and use it for irrigating your garden. So you have a double win of the same water. If you look at the commercial building, all of this water was running away. These roofs didn't have gutters, and you look at all that hard landscaping there. So what they could do is install gutters here, divert that down to a central point. There are gutters, the downpipes are just discharging into the garden. Reroute those downpipes, and that can be your drinking water. All the runoff from your parking lot can be harvested there, goes to your irrigation tanks, and you use that to keep your garden alive. A garden that's looking good adds value to your property. I used to have an irrigation business in the 90s when automatic irrigation systems sort of started becoming fashion. People would often ask me, if I remember it was many years back, if I spend 15,000 Rand on an automatic irrigation system, can I add 15,000 Rand to the price of my house when I sell it? And I said, no. Nobody will spend 15,000 or pay 15,000 Rand for a second-hand irrigation system. But because your garden receives the right amount of water at the right time and your garden is looking beautiful, you can add 30,000 Rand to the price of your house. And this is exactly what you can do in cases like this as well. Permeable paving, that's something that I think is way underutilized in South Africa at the moment. It significantly reduces flash floods because you don't have runoff of the parking, you actually capture it right there. I've seen a number of people taking photos, you're welcome to do so, but also we have at the back there by Annalene, you can write down your name and make a copy of the slideshow, we can send it to you as well. So now you can harvest all of that water without creating a storm. Harvest it underground, pump it above ground storage, doesn't matter, and you can use that. Now, as I said, rainwater may not be enough, but it can be supplemented by use of grey water or on-site treated wastewater. Very important, if you use alternative water, grey water or wastewater recycling, to flush your toilets, to irrigate your garden, it means you put less pressure on your rainwater system. So the rainwater in your tanks will also last longer. Why do you want to use rainwater to flush your toilets and then you need to go and buy water to drink? Use alternative water to flush your toilets and you will have rainwater in your tanks for longer. Yet another way of saving. This is just one slide on HVAC. This photo was taken in Van Reinsdorp in Makwaland in the month of October. That's the runoff from one single air conditioner that you see there. How much water can you harvest of your air cons, your heating systems, your ventilations? And that's pure distilled water. Who of you have heard about air water generation? Few hands here. This is air water generation. It's condensate from there. Pure drinking water, we're dumping it on the paving and then we say we have a shortage of water. Harvest that, lead these pipes to your rainwater tanks. Again, you don't need another system to do that. You just need to get this water to your rainwater tanks. And that will constantly top up your rainwater as long as your air cons are running, as long as your geysers are heating water. Immediately you have an additional top-up. So there's an additional benefit. If you look at our pools, pool water has never been seen as a source because of the chlorine or the salt content. What we can now have is a pool that can become a backup. Now, I'm not going to tell you to drink your pool water because you never know what happened in that pool, okay? But it can be a source of water in case of emergency, be it for toilet flushing, washing your clothes, or whatever the case may be. And the way you do that is you get away from high chlorine content, you get away from high salt content by installing something like the Blue Lagoon pool systems. You get UV with copper, UV with ozone, different combinations. And you can either reduce your chlorine by 90% or you can go completely chlorine free. Now you have a freshwater pool. Oh, sir, but I don't have a place for water tanks. I can't harvest rainwater, I don't have a place for water tanks. There's your water tank. You can top that up with rainwater. There's no need to top up your pool with municipal water. Brendan and I had a bit of a chat the other day on LinkedIn about that as well. When you have a rainwater tank, you take your overflow to your pool. Why do you want your overflow to run away and then buy water for your pool? Now this pool was taken with a standard Nikon camera. Nothing was photoshopped on it. And you can still see the creepy crawly pipe at the back there. And this pool hasn't seen a drop of chlorine for 6 years when this photo was taken. This is what's achievable. Also, it's good for your health because you don't have that chlorine irritating your nose, irritating your eyes, you don't have the dry skin and all of that. But besides that, it becomes a perfect reservoir in times of need. This is a commercial pool at the gym. Now there's a lot about this. They had to replace the steel structure of the roof because of the chlorine gas that corroded the steel. Then they replaced this with this UV, and this photo was taken using my cell phone about 9 months into operation. You can see how beautiful that pool is looking there. So even there, on commercial pools, you can install UVs, you reduce your chlorine, and your backwash water is also usable. You can take that to toilet flushing, you can take it to your garden as well. Quite possible. And your pool can be automatic backup for certain functions when you install a lifting station or pressure system right next to it. And this can be fully automated. I can show you the case study. I'm not going to do it now because it's taking too much time, but if somebody wants a case study, I can give it to you, where we built an actual fire pool long before Nkandla. And I can promise you it was fully automatic. With the press of a button, the pool pump would, or this pump will start and it will pump the water onto the thatch roof. So it's quite possible. All of these integrated systems are possible. By the way, it was a lot cheaper than Nkandla's as well. Okay, any questions at this point? I know it's quite a long presentation, but I need to carry the message of hope, the message of solutions. Questions?
What's the cost of using the UV light for the treatment of the pool?
The cost of a UV light for the pool compared to chlorine, your initial capital cost, depending on the size of the pool, your capital cost can be anywhere between 7,000 up to 20,000 rand, depending on, that's the money you've got to pay for the equipment. But then you replace the lamp once a year if you're on your pump 24/7. If you're on your pump 12 hours a day, you replace your lamp every 2 years at the cost of about 1,000 rand. So you don't have the ongoing cost of buying chlorine. There's a capital cost for the equipment, but then you have, let's say with installation, 1,500 rand every 2 years to replace your lamp. So eventually it's a lot cheaper. Any other questions?
There are also rainwater treatment systems to be able to use rainwater in your house. What would be the cost of that?
Is it household rainwater system or grey water system? Rainwater system. The average cost of a rainwater system, that depends very much on what needs to be done. As you've seen in this other case study where gutters had to be moved, or roofs had to be added, that becomes a more costly exercise. Other than that, you're looking at a water tank, depending on the size of the tank, the amount of you want to store as well. You're looking at about, depending on the manufacturer, 1,000 to 1,500 rand per 1,000 litres of water that you want to store. In other words, a 10,000 litre tank costing you about 15,000 rand. And then you've got your pump, you've got your filters. Thumbs up, Brendan?
Yeah, like 20 to 30, I would think, for an average.
20 to 30 for the most basic system.
Yeah.
Once you start adding the automatic changeovers, and if you add bigger tanks, you can go up to 60, 70,000. That's if there's not huge construction needed to get the rainwater to a central point. But the beauty is,
Depends what you want to do with it. If it's just for filling your pool or irrigation, then it's obviously a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Than you
Or
like.
we have for use in the inside of the house.
yeah, inside of the house, you've got to do proper treatment. If it's for toilet flushing or for irrigation, it's obvious, or pool top-up, it's a lot cheaper as well. The nice part is you can start with something and you can expand on it. You can start with a tank and you can manually collect water if needed. Then, if there's more cash flow, you can add a pump to it. So you can start with something very basic and you can build on it as well. It doesn't mean that you have to start with a 200,000 rand system. So it depends very much. What we do in cases like this, talking from a company point of view now, is we look at every customer's need, then we look at what is available, and then we look at the money side of things. And we bring all of that together. It becomes a Lego set. There's so many things we can play with, going from basic to most elaborate systems. But with that in mind, it can be custom made to the customer's need as well. But yeah, less than 20,000 rand, you're not really going to get away with anything meaningful. So,
the minimum size of your water tank to make an operation with minimum cost of 20,000 rand viable, according to property size. So obviously, if you're living in a 40 or 60 square place, you won't have space to store more than, say, for example, 2,500 liters max on the property without any ground. Where is that balance? Do you have a minimum recommended reservoir size per property area that you catch rainwater according to this area?
the question is there a minimum level where it becomes a break-even point, where below that it doesn't become worthwhile? I don't think so. The more rainwater you can store, the quicker your payback. The less you can store, the longer your payback, but you will have a payback, that's for sure. And if you're looking at municipal water, just looking at Joburg again, in the last 3 years, the water prices increased 9%, 9.5%, and 9% again. So water inflation is above inflation. It will continue to be above inflation to try and catch up with the infrastructure that is in the condition that it is. So whatever investment you now make, you will have free water. Whatever amount it is, you will have that amount of water. Remember also when it rains, it doesn't rain one day and nothing for the other 364 days of the year. Every time it rains, you harvest water. Every time it rains, you store. Yes, the more you can store, the more you benefit, but I don't believe there's a minimum cut-off point.
Is there no, in terms of running costs, because remember your pump is consuming, that's not for the last year. So if you're paying, say for example, if you use a DSD, cheapest DSD pumps in the market is probably something like 8,000 to 9,000 rand. Operational cost on that means you have to have a balancing.
Okay. Yeah, but what you now have to keep in mind, you're talking about the operational cost of the pump because the pump will fail and need to be replaced. Your pump is designed to run a certain number of hours. So if you have a small tank, your pump will run less hours before it runs out of water. So instead of lasting 8 years, your pump may last 16 years. If you have a bigger tank, you replace your pump more often because it has reached these end-of-life design capacity. Filters the same. The more water you have in your tank, the more water you put through your filters, the more often you need to replace them. The less water you have in your tank, the longer it takes between filter change intervals. So yes, there's a capital cost that's fixed, but the operational cost actually becomes the operational cost per litre that you put through there. It doesn't matter what volume it is.
Any water use license required for the sort of resident?
Water use license required, to the best of my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected. If guys with the EAs can help me out here. Now, for rainwater harvesting, on your average domestic scale is not needed. You start getting into, if you get into serious volume, if you take water from rivers and stuff, it's a different story. But if you catch off your roof, there's no license required for that.
So, Aaron, maybe just on that, so we've got an instance now where...
I'm going to hand the mic to you quickly.
Sorry, we've got an instance now where a large commercial property was collecting all their rainwater into an attenuation pond that they built, and then abstracting the water from that pond and using it, and now that seems to be a grey area. So now Vula license is coming into play there, so water use license is coming into play there. It doesn't make any sense because they built the attenuation pond. it's their rainwater off their roofs that's going, but because they're pumping it from the pond, now it's a bit of an issue. So, but on a domestic level, there's no problem, and most standard, smaller commercial properties, there's no issue with it.
So the problem is not rainwater, the problem is the pond.
The problem is the pond. Yes, you see, our legislation has never really, it wasn't designed for the situation we find ourselves in right now.
What's the alternative?
Tanks.
Thanks. Yeah, if they put it into huge, big mega tanks, no problem, yeah.
Isn't there legislation regarding the amount of water that you're allowed to store above ground?
Okay, we're going to repeat a lot of things here because we do have people online as well. We have people in Kenya and in South America also listening to us. Yes, there is. You read your legislation, it's a few million litres that you can store before you actually start getting into that. What happened in the case of this pond, it is now seen as a dam. You can only have a certain size dam, and that's where the problem comes in. But you need to catch some serious rainwater before you run into legislation problems there. At the back?
Just to comment on the gentleman's question about payback period on the residential side, you also need to keep in mind that the more water that you have available, the more you will actually eventually consume. So you're actually going to reach a quicker payback period eventually. Because if you've got no water, you can't calculate the saving interest. If you only have 10 cubic meters a month available, you can only calculate within that 10 cubic. So now you've got 30 or 40 available, so you're actually plus using or you are actually paying back.
Yeah, so the short version of what you're saying, just to repeat it for everybody, is the more water you can store, the quicker you pay back. Which is natural. Absolutely. Anything else? Right, we're going to step onto grey water and then wastewater, where you see even bigger benefits coming through. Looking at grey water. Before I change the slide now, I want to again ask, who in this room doesn't like the idea of grey water because it smells really bad the minute you use it and you irrigate with it? Okay, see some heads nodding there. How many people doesn't like the idea because of the foul? Okay, there's some more hands coming up. And that is true. A lot of people don't want to harvest grey water because it's associated with foul odor. You can't afford to send your wife go shopping every time you want to irrigate the garden with grey water. That sum doesn't make sense. But when you treat it, you don't have the foul odor problem. If you treat it, you can store it for months at a time. I know, I've done it. And it can be used for an array of non-drinking purposes. There are guys that put it through filters, taking it to drinking water, but then you need to register as a water services provider. It becomes a lot more difficult. Use it for irrigating your garden, use it for flushing your toilet, use it for hosing off your paving. And then you don't trigger any of those, and it's cheap. Now, when you use grey water, as I said earlier, you reduce your potable water demand, so you save your municipal bill. But even if you do rainwater harvesting, your rainwater tanks will last longer. So you have a double score off the same water source. But at the same time, it's coming back to what Darren said. If we use our grey water, we reduce the amount of wastewater we send to the municipal systems, which are often overloaded. So when we reduce volume to the municipal systems, we give them a chance to do a better job. Not only will they discharge less water, but they will discharge treated effluent of a better quality, which has a double benefit again to our river systems. And when you use it, keep in mind, depending on the source of the grey water, it may contain bacteria. If somebody was ill or something like that. So if you use it where human contact is possible, like irrigating a sports field that somebody's going to play on there, do disinfect it before you discharge, before you use it for irrigation purposes. This is just, now from here on I'm going to use a few products that are built by my own company. I'm not saying these are the only products on the market. I'm not saying these are absolutely the best. We always try to be the best. I'm using this as an example because this is what I know best. There are other companies, there are other manufacturers in the industry. So this is not a talk down to any manufacturer or play off one against the other. I'm just showing you what is practically possible. In this case, it's an underground tank. That's the one that you saw in the lawn there. You'll see it again just now. Underground tank with a filtration chamber taking out the hair and the lint and all the other stuff. A storage chamber where it's aerated and then we pump from there. So you're taking a lot of your coarse debris out here. All that stuff that normally clog up your non-return valve of the pump. The stuff that actually clogs up your pump. Those things we filter out beforehand and then we take it into the irrigation system. With this system, you can put it through your automatic irrigation and you won't clog your sprinklers. The longest one in use is 9 years now, without any problems. So that's that same one there. We do have another irrigation filter to take out finer stuff. Remember, we've got the coarse filter on gravity, and then on the pump line a finer filter, the pump there, and it feeds straight into the irrigation system. In this case, there's also an automatic changeover, because the grey water alone may not be enough. So when you run out of grey water, or if you're on holiday and there's nobody there generating grey water, if the grey water tank runs out, you will automatically change over to municipal water. It's all done automated again. Now you can go one step further. You have your rainwater harvesting system, and if that is full, it can overflow and you can top up your grey water system. But then you need to be very careful when you do that, because when it's full, you want your grey water to overflow to the sewer, otherwise your grey water ends up in our rivers. And you want your rainwater to overflow to the stormwater, otherwise you flood our sewer systems and create another problem. It's doable, we've done it before. So the two waters will mix in the tank, and when the tank is full, it will actually shut off the rainwater, divert it to a different direction, going into the stormwater, and the grey water will just overflow into the sewer system. So that is quite possible. Here's another case. Chris, I think this is more in your line of tanks, but small maybe. But there you've got your rainwater harvesting system, you've got your grey water system under the trampoline. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. In this case, there was no space underground, so we put a filter chamber and lifting station in the paving. And then the grey water tank here, there's the pump for the grey water system, and rainwater harvesting right next to it. So again, very small space, slimline tanks. Yes, they cost a bit of money, but you can put them like we've done here, and there's still enough space in the walkway. This guy couldn't fit a 2,500 tank because then there's no space to walk. So these are 1,000 litre slimlines. There's your filter station and your pump that you see in the picture there. The little panel that we've built that does your automatic switch over. So here you can have different inputs, your tank water, municipal water with an automatic switch over. But remember, with automatic switch over, you need to have your RPZ in place as well. So the panel is not the only answer, you need to definitely do that RPZ. This is for a block of flats. There's your filter chamber, there's a storage aeration chamber, and here we go on a double VSD system through the filters, through disinfection, and then it goes back into toilet flushing. Remember, toilet flushing in a domestic setup is about 30% of your water. So if you do this, you save 30%. In this case, it's a block of flats, so there's not a lot of garden to do compared to the amount of grey water. They have a lot more grey water than what they can use for irrigation. But now they can take it back to the toilets as well. And this is a campus, university campus, where it's a grey water system. There's an underground collection tank below this building, and then it's filtered and it's stored in the tank there, and then used again for toilet flushing and for irrigating the sports fields. So these are the practical things that are possible with grey water systems. Again, I'm not going into design details because then you'll be here till next week, and I don't think you want to listen to my voice that long. Any questions on grey water before we move on to the last topic? Are there restrictions as to where you can use grey water? You cannot use it anywhere where it comes in direct with human contact. In other words, you can't use it for showers, you can't use it for drinking, you can use it for irrigation, you can use it for hard landscaping, cleaning, not human contact, not inside the house. Yeah, of course, you don't want it in your neighbor's property because why do you want to give your neighbor free water anyway if you have a shortage? No, definitely not. And of course, when you do rainwater, grey water, you don't want runoff into your stormwater system because then you start getting into river pollution again. So there's a few basic things to keep in mind. If you use it for garden irrigation, whatever nutrients is in the grey water will be taken up by the plants. What I didn't say here is your grey water often contains ammonia. Ammonia coming from your detergents, coming from somebody taking a leak in the shower or something like that. And your ammonia is not good for the garden in the long run. But the grey water system that uses an aeration process will change your ammonia over to nitrates. Nitrates is fertilizer for your plants. And I'm speaking of practical sites that I've done in Cape Town. The one site used to use 18 kiloliters of grey water plus 12 kiloliters of municipal water per month in summer to keep the garden alive. That was in the old anaerobic grey water systems. With the drought in Cape Town, I designed and changed over to this aerobic system. I shut off the municipal line because there was a water shortage and said whatever survives on the 18 kiloliters of grey water must survive. Whatever dies, too bad. The garden was looking better using only the grey water with aeration than it was using 18 kiloliters of grey water plus 12 kiloliters of municipal water. So you condition your water, you improve the quality of the water, you turn your ammonia into nitrates, and your garden will look significantly better with even less water that you put on there. So it's very, very important to do that investment and do aerate your grey water before you use it for irrigation. If you want to know how, you can put your name down there and we'll get back to you later. Yes, sir.
Maintenance on the grey water systems at that first chamber, is it a regular thing? Obviously, it depends on the density and the chemical use, but
what's the maintenance on the first chamber of that grey water system? It very much depends on abuse. If you have, for instance, a few people living there with long hair, then you will maintain it more often than short hair. It depends on what you put on the drain at the end of the day. That specific one that you saw there, that was the first prototype I installed in my house in Cape Town. I used to clean that filter once every 3 months in the tank. The other filter, the pressurized filter, after 3 years I opened it for the first time to see what it looks like inside because I've never had a pressure problem. But that's what you're looking at. You can stretch it up to 6 months even. The more abuse, the more regular you're going to clean it. Any other questions? You get other kinds of pre-filters as well that need a lot more maintenance. These ones are designed specific for that. We bring it in from America. That's specifically designed for these core screenings up front. And it's easy. What's not in the slideshow again is that filter has a cartridge that you can pull out, and it takes you 1 minute. I've got a video where a guy does it. It takes you 1 minute to hose it off with hose pipe and put it back in. It's very, very simple to do. Anything else on there? Right, let's look at where we can make real big impacts. Wastewater. Now, things have changed quite a bit now compared to 5 years and 10 years back. But in general, if I have to say to you, you have a high density commercial area and you now need to start treating wastewater and use it. How many people think it's possible to do that in a high density city environment? That's only 4 people in the entire room. Well, okay, you're one of the 4, Laura. Let me show you something. First of all, let's look at our water cycle. We have our catchment area, which normally the water ends up in a dam somewhere. We abstract from that dam, we put it through a filtration system, we use it, we discharge it through an overloaded municipal wastewater treatment works, and we pollute our water course. Now this is very important. Remember what I said earlier, when you flush it, it's gone, it's out of sight, it's not your problem. Look what's happening here. It's coming back to be your problem because you're feeding it into water courses that feed your drinking water. I do apologize for the sensitive ears, but you're literally pouring in your own drinking water. When you discharge your wastewater to a non-functional or overloaded municipal wastewater treatment work, you're pouring in your own drinking water. There's no nice way to say it. Okay, now, but in my town it's different because in my town this wastewater system discharged below the dam wall. Oh, beautiful! You just feed it to your neighbor. Come on, where's Ubuntu here? That's what we end up doing. At a previous meeting, I said, okay, everybody by a show of hands who believes eating healthy is good. And just about everybody put up their hands, and the next thing I asked is, who likes some nice grapes every now and again? And everybody put up their hands again. I said, now you think if you flush a problem in Gauteng, it's going to go down the Wall River, it's not your problem? Guess what? Your grapes come from Uppington. The farmers in Uppington has a problem with equalizing their water in the river because that river is coming from Gauteng. So you export your sewage problem to Uppington and you import it back in the form of grapes. That's how the water cycle works, whether we like it or not. But there's another little problem here. The other problem is if you look at the carbon footprint. Again, not many people think that water has a carbon footprint, okay? It's a natural thing. How can that have a carbon footprint? Would you agree? Well, the problem is, if you're in Pretoria and you get water from the Vaal Dam, what's the figure? About 60% from Victoria's water coming from the Vaal, I think. Well, if you look there, that's 124 kilometers line of sight. So you're looking at about 150, 200 kilometers of pipeline that you need to pump that water. But your problem is from here to there is a 300-meter rise. You need 30 bars of pressure to lift the water to Joburg before you can flow it down to Pretoria. 30 bars of pressure, to give you an idea, your irrigation system at home runs on 3 bars. Your average geyser runs at 4 bars. We're talking 30 bars here to lift that water to Joburg before you can get it to Pretoria. What is your carbon footprint on that pipeline? What is your carbon footprint on those pumps? What's your carbon footprint on the electricity that you use for that? Now we're not even talking purification and all the other stuff that goes with it. So your cost and your carbon footprint becomes huge in cases like this. So what we now do is we start thinking a little bit different. When we do on-site reuse, so whatever wastewater we have here, we treat on-site, we take it back. We now start talking about increased water resilience. And remember, every time you flush a toilet and you treat it, you have water to flush the toilet again, no matter whether the municipal water is on or off. So we're also talking continuation of operation because people can stay on site, at least they can use the ablutions. Yes, you may have to buy from your local grocery store water for making coffee. But at least you have water for ablutions that you don't have to truck in. But the minute you do this, you reduce your abstraction from your water course. You reduce the pressure on your treatment system. You reduce your discharge, you have fewer overflowing sewer manholes, and you reduce the volume in Olifantsfontein wastewater treatment works. So you get a better quality effluent feeding the Hennops, which eventually feeds Harties again. So you improve your total water cycle. You score big money here. Coming back, I don't have the figures on right now for City of Tshwane, but City of Joburg, commercial again, we're talking 98 rand a kiloliter to get water from there. For commercial reuse here, you can do it for as little as 8 rand. A saving of 90 rand, that's a saving of close to 90%. Which other investment will give you a saving of 90%? Come on, think about it. Financial savings, financial benefit because you have water at least for ablutions or other non-drinking purposes. Your doors can remain open, you don't have to close down like the Supreme Court. And you have a positive effect on the entire water cycle. Again, if you reduce your usage here, you leave more water there, so you build resilience from that point of view for your drinking water. So it's a win, 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 win all the way. In 2020, the University of Stellenbosch, and I'm not going to try to give you all the details, but in 2020, the University of Stellenbosch said, retaining and recycling water to address water scarcity in the city of Cape Town. They looked at all possible water sources taking Cape Town into the future. They excluded desalination because of the cost. And there's this whole document. If anybody wants it, we can email it to you, talking about the benefits and how you can move forward and how recycling will save the day and for Cape Town become a water source for the future. Exactly the same thing applies here. I'm going to show you one technology. There's not enough time to go through different technologies. Yes, it is our technology. I'm a little bit biased here, okay? The fusion system, which is an underground installed wastewater treatment plant. And it will recycle your water on site for you. Comes standard with a panel that has an early warning system. So if anything goes wrong with the system, it will immediately warn you before you have a pollution problem. And these early warning systems, I think, are critical. Because something can go wrong, it's man-made. But you need to know when things go wrong. These 7 steps, I'm not going through them in detail. I can tell you that quite a number of wastewater treatment plants in South Africa, I almost want to say 90% of the small plants, stop at stage number 3. These stages are missing. And you can take it with anything, even if you bake something at home, take out half your ingredients of the recipe and see if that recipe is going to work. There's certain things that are needed for a wastewater treatment plant to work. So before you look at the price, because that's what most people do, before you look at the price, look at what you get for the price. Because I've seen that so often. People buying cheap and then having to remove it again later. I'm not going to spend time on the technical side of it. Just keep in mind, without disinfection, there are at least 6 steps of treatment that need to happen to get to the water quality that by law you need to get to if you want to use or discharge this water. Okay? But at the same time, again, for pollution, otherwise you end up weighing again in your drinking water. Case studies. Where do you think is the highest risk installation you can have in terms of if your system fails, you will have big problems? Where do you think is the highest risk installation? Let me see if I can get 2 or 3 people to answer that question for me. No, you're not allowed to. You know the answer. Come on. You know the answer to Nora, you're not allowed to answer. And so does Andries and Arno. I'm listening, sir. Close to any natural water system, yes. But if you step it up a bit more, where's the highest risk? How about the Department of Environmental Affairs? This is the Department of Environmental Affairs in the City of Cape Town. You can see it's dense city. There's no space. You see in the middle of the building there is a tree growing up there. If you take a closer look, that's the same tree. If you look outside, there's no space. Okay, you can't do anything here with water. You can't harvest rainwater, there's no space. You can't recycle, there's no space, okay? Everybody agree? Look at what we've done. In that quad, surrounded by high-rise buildings, 2 meters away from Environmental Affairs Boardroom, we recycle their wastewater and we flush their toilets for the last 6 years. I see Nora nodding here. Nora's been there. She did an audit on this thing. The user experience, Nora, good or bad? Very good. This is what we're getting out of the system. And we've cut the water demand by 50%. Remember I said for domestic toilet flush is about 30%. Here we're talking about a commercial building where toilet flush can be up to 90%. In this case it's 50% because they have showers and stuff as well. So you've just cut your water bill by half. But you have water resilience, you always have toilet flush water. For 6 years going now, I think the case study speaks for itself. You can do it in the city, you can make a positive difference. And that's why today's theme is talking solutions, because we hear so much about the problems out in the media already. Let's talk solutions. This is on a small building. You can see how nicely it blends in with the gardens. There's your treated effluent again. Your air pump. Now the air pump, going back a little bit, there's your air pumps there that's supplying. We had to put in 4 small plants because we physically had to carry them through the building. We couldn't put one big plant in because it just wouldn't fit. But that again is the beauty of having a Lego set. You can pick what's needed. So hiding that air pump there in the garden, we use the false rock. In the walkway, in the paving, if you want to drive over it, you've got to do a proper slab. I know Umtrees has done one where people drive over it in the driveway feeding to an hotel. Unfortunately, Umtrees, I don't have that photo in the slideshow, but that is also possible. Hospitality industry feeds into the fusion. They use the water for irrigation purposes. There is farms, houses at the farms. Kiro School, Bloemfontein. Again, you can see the treated effluent. They're using that for the sports field irrigation. But the beauty, now we start talking modular systems, because this was designed for a school having a maximum of 600 learners. So then the school grew, they're just over 800 learners now, so the wastewater treatment plant is too small. Oh, big problem. Nope. We just dropped in number 3. And now they can go up to 900 learners. When they go above 900, we drop in number 4. And so we can expand as the demand of the site expands. Isn't that beautiful? These are mostly Umtrees installations. Umtrees, staan net voor op, almal kan sien wie is jy. Jou arm en jy kan maar saam opstaan, julle is saam met die besigheid. They've been doing this in Gauteng since 2012. So these are all installations that Umtrees have done above ground. Some of them are in Mpumalanga, some are here, not very far from here in fact. Then if we look at bigger developments, this one is in Katima Molilo, Namibia. Each color is a different phase. So there is phase 1 coming in. They've got 2 phases up and running now. These ones are now up and running, and these phases will still come in. So even within the development, rather than having a central sewer system at a huge cost and pumping stations, because it's relatively flat there, they decentralize within the development, and each phase will get their own set of treatment plants, and they will reuse the water in that phase for irrigation purposes. What a beauty. You literally do clusters as you move along. There you can see the final grade of the system. This one we did phase 1 in November last year. You can see many more phases to come. Again, this is in KZN, it's typically hilly areas. The EIA experts will now tell you what a nightmare that becomes in terms of, well, some will make a lot of money, so for them it's not a nightmare, but every time you have a waterway crossing or a catchment crossing, the EIAs you need to go through, and the pumping stations to pump it up 50 meters or 100 meters. So in this case, it will be fully decentralized. This is the shopping center that we've done here, shopping center, filling station and church. And the rest of this development will come as they build. The next phase is in a few months from now. So there you can see what it looks like. These 7 plants standing here will service the shopping center, the filling station and the church. In the case of a domestic setup, this will serve 140 houses. It uses 2.5 kilowatts per hour. That's nothing. For 140 houses, 2.5 kilowatts per hour, that's just for the treatment, it excludes pumping back and so forth. It's out of sight, fits in very nicely with your landscape. There are a few more projects like that coming up, and in future we will have some more to show on that. There you can see the 7 tanks during the installation period. This is a filling station, again the treated effluent. A mining village, again the treated effluent, which they wanted to use for growing veggies on site there. A campsite. Okay, here you don't put your drinking water, you sleep next to your pool. But imagine from a noise point of view, you're out in nature, it's all quiet. These are individual campsites, so you don't have a neighbor. And you've got your air pump running there, you don't hear it at night. Kango caves making use of this technology, where they pump their wastewater up to that point. It gravity feeds to a lifting station here. They pump it up, treat it, pump it higher up on the mountain and bring it back for toilet flushing and for irrigation. Fruitgate Nature Reserve, the Whip Nature Reserve, when you go on the whale trail, you will have your fusions there treating your wastewater. There are more nature reserves. There's a botanical garden, a few others as well. We cannot do all of them. So the case studies is just to show you it is possible in just about any location. Different technologies are suitable better for certain locations, but you can do it anyway, and you can recycle 100% of your water for non-drinking. If you want to take it to drinking purposes, then you go through a reverse osmosis system. You will have, depending on the system that you use, anywhere between 25 and 45% waste. So there you do lose water. But it also becomes more expensive. We are busy with a case now where there is no drinking water. There's no municipal supply. The boreholes can only deliver 8% of the total volume needed. Rainwater harvesting is difficult. It's going to be done, but for 3 months of the year there is no rain. So the only option left is that we take treated effluent back to drinking water standards and then blend it in with the rainwater and the boreholes to be the total answer. So it's doable, but it is your more expensive solution. Your cheap solution is to use that for non-drinking purposes and save your expensive water for drinking, for showering, for human contact. Okay. Taking lead from the Cape. Now remember, you've already seen, I've got to be very careful, I know I'm in a global country now, so you've already seen University of Stellenbosch, the study that they've done, and I just want to mention something on that. That papers talk about industrial reuse. After the paper was published, I met with a professor and he said to me, Gerard, but what you're doing is changing our model completely because you can now do domestic water as well. Reuse become a much bigger factor. Obviously, they're not going to rewrite the paper. City of Cape Town already in 2018 bylaws said renovations and new developments must make use of water conservation and demand management systems or alternative water systems for non-drinking purposes. It's already by law in Cape Town. And I stand to be corrected, but I believe that Ekurhuleni is also coming to a point where they said new developments must do their own wastewater treatment because they can't do it anymore. So these things are changing. Municipalities used to resist this. They don't really have an option but now to adopt this. Green Cape has done a study also in 2020 promoting on-site treatment and reuse. I may be in trouble for what I'm going to say now, but I'm not known to be scared of trouble. Green Cape, their purpose is to promote green technology. Started up and funded by the Western Cape government and City of Cape Town. Now these are private funders as well. I couldn't quite get Green Cape to buy into this thing. They did a lot of other green stuff, but this wastewater recycling thing, they didn't like that idea. Until I went to show them the case study at Department of Environmental Affairs. 3 months later, they issued this paper, because then they saw in proof what is possible. Another study by them was the Kangaroo Caves. You can read up it on the website. They actually give you the numbers. And this is the first property where we did on-site wastewater treatment, August of 2010. The beauty is they're moving that house now. They've broken it down last year, they're moving it. They're taking out the infusion, they're moving it with. So there's some green material. Also going to the Solar Impulse Foundation. There's only 2 companies in Africa that's listed for the Solar Impulse. This is one of them. So I think that is, and to list there's a set of criteria, and one of them is you must already be in commercial operation. It's not a trial or a design or a test phase, it must already be commercially accepted. Then when we look at on-site wastewater, I'm not going to spend time on that, but we speak to 13 of the 17 SDGs. Not all 13 necessarily on the same site, but we speak to 13 of the 17 SDGs. Now, to all the corporates sitting here and all the consultants to corporates, if you want to increase your SDG score, have a look at this. This is a way to do it. Now, you can take it one step further. If you do need to spend, if you're corporate, you need to spend your corporate responsibilities. You need to spend money in the communities. When you spend money in the community, you start talking about no poverty, because people can use the water to grow food. You talk about zero hunger. You talk about gender equality. You talk about health. How do you talk about health when you're talking wastewater? It's very simple. Kids don't play in sewage contaminated soil anymore because you give them proper sanitation. So when you fund something like this for a community, you score SGDs, but you also have your points for your community responsibility. So it's a double win yet again. And lastly, this is specific to our company. If you look at partnerships, the way we do it is we partner with local installers and local maintenance people. So we create local wealth, build a local economy. And that's where the partnerships come in. For those of you who say, yes, I'd like to do this, but it's too expensive, I don't have 100 or 200 or 5 million, whatever the case may be, to spend on this intervention. It can be financed. We're working with Capital Box there. So you can finance it, and your saving in buying water can carry your installment. So you're cash flow neutral until your investment is paid off, and then you're cash flow positive. So you can get involved in this intervention without having to fork out the big money that you don't have. There's also a possibility of rentals that's a bit more strict, but there is also a possibility we have companies that don't want to buy the equipment, they don't want it on their books, but they will rather have the operational expense of a rental. It is also possible through the financing model. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, I want to say on-site recycling will increase your water resilience. It will reduce your overhead expenses in not buying water, or buying less water at least. It will reduce your carbon footprint, increase your sustainable development rating. It will increase your ESG score because your E, environmental, you need to drop your water consumption by 20%. You can do it with this. So you can score on your ESG. And you save our water courses, which Darren will love when you go off grid. Thank you very much. Question at the back? Sorry, Darren, over here.
Yeah, sorry, it's regarding your financial modeling. I know legislation is saying bylaws and capital expenditure. It's great. But I'm specifically talking to raising taxes and rebates in terms of the sewage charge. So your incoming water, you get the charge for outgoing in terms of sewer, they normally take the same meter read. So with this type of system you're using for irrigation, Cape Town's catching up, like you're saying, Gauteng's far behind. So on the development side, we find ourselves behind the eight ball to look at the long-term win of raising taxes.
Okay, so if we're talking from a financial model, your sewage in any municipality is calculated as a percentage of your water consumption. Joburg used to charge you per site, but that was, there was a court case and they lost the case. It's now charged as a percentage of your water consumption. So even if you use it for irrigation purposes, because what happens is the municipality will charge you for your total water intake. They don't care what you do with it inside your property. So when you irrigate with municipal water, you actually pay a sewage charge because they can't distinguish where you use it. When you irrigate with treated effluent, you take in less water, so you pay less for your water, but at the same time, your sewer charge also drops. So there's a direct financial benefit, and that's where you can even finance it. When it comes to the capital expense, that differs from municipality to municipality. Because Cape Town, they started this after years of negotiation. When Potsdam was out of capacity, polluting the Milnerton Lagoon, and they stopped all development. Of course, there was a huge outcry. And Cape Town then said what they will do is they will allow on-site treatment. They call it package plants, I hate that word, but anyway. They will allow package plants for new developments in the affected areas. In other words, where they don't have capacity. They then said when there is capacity, the developer will need to decommission and remove the system and reconnect back to the municipal line. To help the developer with the cost, they decided not to charge the bulk infrastructure contribution or development contribution for sewage. So you would still pay your DC for water, electricity, roads and that stuff, but they would discount the DC for sewage, which was the financial incentive from a capital point of view. Not all municipalities do that. Cape Town has subsequently now changed, and they said, provided that your system complied to the National Water Act, your effluent, you can now opt to keep your system, or you can opt to connect back. And if you keep your system, and you can prove that you don't discharge to the municipal system, they don't charge you any sewage. Again, Cape Town is a little bit ahead of many other municipalities, but that is coming through. But even without that, you will have a net saving. Cape Town now has taken it one step further, where they say on an application basis, they will allow it even outside the affected areas. So wherever you develop, you can apply to do your own thing now because it's going green, it's sustainable, all of those things. And many other municipalities are following as far as that's concerned. So financially, the financial model will differ from municipality to municipality. It also differs from schools to industrial to domestic. But we will have to run the modeling. We've got the models, it's a matter of plugging in the figures and see where the sweet spot for the site is. Yes, sir?
Is there a possibility of extracting biogas as a byproduct?
Abstracting biogas, not in our system, because we pump air into the system, you dilute your methane significantly. You can have a biogas system upstream, but the effluent from a biogas system, you cannot legally discharge. So you can have a biogas system upstream, and there you can even put your grass clippings or whatever else in, and the effluent you can take into the fusion for polishing, and then you can recover your water. So it'll become a dual system, but not. There are other systems where you can harvest biogas, but not this one. Okay. Okay, so firstly, if we talk bylaws that differ from municipality to municipality, a lot of municipalities now don't have an official bylaw, so they just allow you to do your own thing. Because remember, the absence of a bylaw doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means they don't have a way to regulate it. When it comes to maintenance, this is now privately owned. This is not owned by the city, and the city won't maintain it. It's on your property, being it a body corporate, a homeowners association, a commercial site, a private house, it doesn't matter. There is a legal entity. In the case of a developer, the developer will transfer that to the HOA or the body corporate when you transfer the rest of the services. So they remain responsible. And the municipalities will often ask for an SLA. So there's an SLA in place with a private company to make sure this is maintained. And they can ask for test results on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever the case may be, and also depending on volume. So they can call for that. And I would love them to call for it, because if it's not maintained, you sit with downstream pollution. The nice thing is, when you have on-site, Andries will tell you, in his younger days, they removed 17 car They removed 17 motor car rims from the municipal sewer line in the near Vakplaas. We've seen TVs, we've seen scaffolding, we've seen newborns, we've seen all things coming down municipal lines. People don't care because they dump it, it's not their problem. If it's on site, it is your problem, so immediately people are directly affected and will take better care of the wastewater treatment plant compared to with the municipal system. So you also shift ownership, you shift responsibility significantly. Okay. All right. Nothing else? Darren wants to have a word quickly. I think the other questions we're running out of time in essence.
Thank you so much, Gerard. That was really informative, and I'm amazed at how engaged and motivated you had the audience for a very long presentation. I would love to say to everybody, get up and go and grab a bite. So long, but I want to squeeze in one more presentation, if that's okay with you, just from him. And Ronnie, who's going to go over an academic perspective of what alternatives are available. So I think you can come through, and it's not going to be...
Not as long as mine.
No.
You see, it's not my fault, Darren, it's all the questions.
verklaring gaan. Dan te vier om te vinnig gedruk nie.
Sorry man.
Nog nog het. Right click net op right. Right click. Close is it, ja. Okay, dan weer af.
Are they? Hello? Hello? Touch. Are they? See if this mic on my body is working? Touch. Hello? Test. Okay, I'm going to use this mic. It doesn't seem like the other one is working yet, or okay, no worries. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for Gerard for his presentation. Hello. Test. No. Test. Could be.
Jack, what happened? Is there a charger or something?
I came to put this on
That's for
start with
the,
YouTube.
yeah,
Okay, guys, it doesn't matter if my outside voice is very good, so no worries about that. So thank you very much for Gerry and for Gerard for his good presentation. Lots of the stuff they have been saying, you might have a repeat that I'm saying, but mostly not. I'm going to talk more about some of the technologies as well that you are able to find for treatment as well. So just to give you a bit of history from our company, where I come from. Sorry. So I've been in the water industry for 22 years. So I have experience in our company as well in different water treatment technologies, from a whole range from microfiltration up to reverse osmosis. So we specialize in membrane technologies, but we do lots of pre-filtration systems like MBBRs, like Gerard is doing with his fusion systems, and MBR systems like they use in Cape Town, like they do use in Cape Town at Potsdam and Zandvliet and Stellenbosch. So we work with many international suppliers that we represent their products in South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, which includes systems for grey water and sewage water reuse. So as you've seen, Gerry has shown us as well, and I believe Gerard has also touched on it, our population is growing, and our water resources is only so big. So we have to look at how we can reuse our water that we have, and typically grey and wastewater, in smart ways for non-potable applications. So most of Sub-Saharan Africa is in a water crisis. Some cities and suburban areas might not feel that crisis, but more rural areas you'll see that lots of smaller towns have taken it into their own hands to put in water treatment systems so they can service the people. Our water infrastructure is failing. We've seen it in our big cities as well, but in the rural areas as well. So it comes to that point where industry and developers are looking at how they can do more decentralized water treatment systems to take the burden out for the municipalities and better to serve the people. So we have solutions, but we need to change change the way how to think about water. So we can save a lot of water by these decentralized water systems. And we can save up to 45% of our wastewater. We can save the incoming water. So this is typically what we used to do. You know, we have a catchment area. We treat the water with conventional or membrane type technologies for drinking water. So part of it will go to irrigation, and part for drinking water into buildings, development, houses, and then it goes back to sewage treatment. So we have to change the way we think. We have to say, no, catchment areas, yes, we're going to treat the water for drinking, but then after that, grey water and what we call black water as well, which is the sewage water, can be reused for different types of applications. And then we'll send less water to the sewage municipal systems for them to handle, like Harold has mentioned as well. So the challenge we face in terms of water, contamination of our water sources. We see that on a regular basis. Municipal wastewater treatment facilities are failing us. It's about old conventional systems, it's about people that's available with knowledge to uphold the systems, so that's failing us in different areas. Water infrastructure is under stress. Maintenance, we see that now with lots of water cuts that we're seeing in Johannesburg and Pretoria, where pipelines are breaking, people are off for weeks on end at some places. So we need to implement solutions for water reuse and send less wastewater down the drain. So I always say we recycle our garbage, why can't we recycle our water? So what can we do? Privately and industrial way. Rainwater harvesting, definitely. Harold has touched on it a lot. We can purify that to potable water. Black water, sewage water treatment for outside uses of our homes and businesses and for toilet flushing. And in grey water reuse, which I'm going to touch on a little bit more, for reuse for toilets, washing machines, irrigation. So what are the solutions? There's compact grey water systems for homes and hotels and offices. Then you get into water treatment technology of membranes, microfiltration, which removes all bacteria, ultrafiltration membranes that removes all bacteria, pathogens, and certain viruses. Ultrafiltration also removes E. coli, what I said now, and pathogens that we always don't talk about, but it's in our water and it's been tested for internationally and sometimes locally, is Cryptosporidium and Giardia, which we cannot remove by dosing chlorine. Chlorine does not kill these pathogens. You need at least 1 micron absolute filters to remove them. And this type of pathogens have killed people. So we specialize in one of our treatments of membranes is ultrafiltration, and that's a technology that is basically a filtration and disinfection in one step, which I'll show you now more. So you get different types of treatment technologies available, like Harold has shown you as well, for grey water uses for home systems. There's more additional systems that you can get around the world, and these are just one of them, which you can capture your grey water. And grey water can include your air cons, water from your showers and baths, and mostly basins. For these type of systems, it depends on what you can capture from the kitchen, but usually we don't capture the kitchen waste because all the oils and fats and foods that we send through to the drain, we don't want into these systems. And these systems can treat the water back for toilet flushing, washing machines, irrigation, swimming pools, and washing cars. And most of these systems are then connected on applications on your phone, which you can monitor these systems as well. They're monitored by the international supplier, they're monitored by a local company, and they're monitored by your installer, and they're monitored by yourself. So you can see actually how much grey water you are saving and where you're reusing it. And if you are mostly using it for toilet flushing and for washing of clothes, and you have additional wastewater, you can send that wastewater just by pressing one button and sending it to your irrigation tank. These systems are very smart. From the bigger technologies that we also do on bigger industrial scale, these systems have been compacted in some of these unique systems where You can take out the sedimentation, have flotation in the system as well, where you take out the hairs and the soaps that comes through from your baths and your showers, which is basically a small dissolved air flotation system. And we have biological system, which we call the MBBR, where you have bacteria growing inside of the system, eating up all the contaminants in your water. And then after that, you have a UV light as well in the system that disinfects the water before sending it to toilets and to your washing machine. So you can see there's a picture of grey water and how it looks like after it's been treated. Not been disinfected yet with everything, but it is UV treated, so it's not for drinking. But you can use it for those applications that we've mentioned to you. So just by adding a UF membrane, you can use that water as well to service certain parts in industrial buildings and homes as well. These systems can be used separately for one home or small hotels or boutique hotels, or they can be used in multiple units for commercial buildings or hotels. You can even use it easier and use it at sports facilities or at gyms where there's lots of water being used for showers and basins, taking all of that water, treating it and reusing it for the sports facility next door. So this is the spectrum that we mostly work on. You'll see there's the membrane technologies that we mostly work on is microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, reverse osmosis. I can also do a very long 50-page presentation on all these technologies, but I'm going to focus just a bit on ultrafiltration. It just shows you as well on the different filtration spectrum what it removes. So one of the big technologies that we focus on is ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis, but ultrafiltration basically, you'll see the spectrum there, removes all your harmful bacteria, pathogens, some of your organic matters and certain viruses. We go down to 0.02 micron filtration. So like I said, it's a filtration step in one, physical barrier and disinfection in one step. So what is ultrafiltration? It's a membrane fiber that's been manufactured in a factory using certain polymers, certain type of plastics. And it varies from different manufacturers. There's a whole range of international manufacturers that supplies into South Africa. And they're mostly made of polyethylsulfone or PVDF. Like I've said before, it filters down to 0.02 micron, which is very small. If you can imagine, we can physically see with our eyes only down to 40 micron in a liquid or air. And that's if you take out one of your hairs, that's a point of the hair that you've pulled out. Anything smaller we can't see with our eyes. So we go down to a very small value where we can remove these harmful bacteria. UF membranes are very robust. They can be chemically cleaned, backwashed, forward flushed for a long period of time. And we've seen membrane plants that we've been involved with the membranes lasting up to 10 years. So it is sometimes a higher capital cost to install these systems, but your operational cost is much lower. Just some pictures to show you what the membranes under a microscope, just to see on a smaller level how small the membranes go, and then the multiple fibers that we put into the different filter modules. Here I've got a small lab scale module. The bigger the flow, the bigger the module becomes, and the multiple modules you can use. So it's not just limited to a certain flow. We've got smaller modules for home applications, for smaller industry, and for big applications as well, which I'll talk to you about now. So this is basically ultrafiltration and how the process works. So if you have any type of iron maybe that you need to remove, we can do some chemical dosing in front, because we don't want iron on your membranes, because it will keep your membranes from operating in a long time. We have to do chemical washes more frequently. We remove that. Goes to a simple strainer, 100, 200 micron strainer, just to keep we always say the big sticks and stones out of the membrane fibers, and then straight onto the ultrafiltration membrane. And after that, it's potable drinking water. If you take it from a river source, dam, bore. After the membrane, we'll do some sodium hypochlorite dosing, which is chlorine, to the correct amount according to your flow before it goes into your tank, just to keep the disinfection going. Or you can put a UV light after that, just to make sure that no contamination happens to your tank. As you can see on the bottom, we use small amounts of different chemicals to clean the membrane, and that gives the membrane its lifespan. To keep the membrane clean, we give it operation. So we do these systems pretty automated. Only operator that you need for these type of systems is to add the different chemicals and make sure that they're still topped up. Otherwise, the system is fully automated, and we can install systems where we can monitor these systems from our offices or anywhere around the world and guide you and operate the system for you as well. This is not just for big applications. We have applications where we have installed backup tanks, feed pumps, piping for a customer, and we've installed smaller membranes, ultrafiltration membranes for filtration into the house as well for the client. As you can see, the membrane modules come in different sizes. So according to your flow rate, we can supply membranes for that size. Usually we'd like to tell the customer, yes, let's make it more cost effective. That's why you're using tanks. So we have your filtered water tank, and we make sure that we put a smaller filter in so we can keep that filtered water tank full of water, because you're not going to use 1,000 liters of water in the next 5 minutes. But you need a constant filling of that water over a 24-hour period so that you can pull water out of it for your use in your home. So what do we reject? So we can do a log 9, and it's very technical, but up to 99.99% of bacteria and viruses removed. So that's absolute filtration. That's what absolute filtration means. We can guarantee, doesn't matter if your incoming water varies, your quality of water after the membrane will always be the same. It's not like a swimming pool filter, where if you suddenly have lots of dirty water coming in, afterwards it might vary a bit because how the sand particles are packed. It's not an absolute filtration. We can guarantee that whatever water you're putting in there, even though your filter might work a little bit harder, the quality of water after the membrane will always be the same. So in most cases, ultrafiltration is used as pre-filtration for wastewater applications before RO or for water desalination. Just to make sure all the large organics are removed before it goes to the RO membranes, because the RO membranes has to focus on the mineral removal. So they complement each other. The typical installations where you get grey water applications where it goes into a grey water collection tank, similar to what Gerard has shown you, and it gives aeration to that, and bacteria growth through, you have some biological processes there, and then it will go through the ultrafiltration membrane. And then after that filtration goes into your storage tank, and then you have your pump set pumping it into the building for reuse. Yes, just to show you some of the installations and products that we've done. The product at the left is not a grey water system, but it is for municipal water treatment into a mall, but typical some of the applications will look similar. So just to show you the bigger module of membranes that we can supply, and we all even have bigger modules. So these modules have 60 square meters, so it means conservatively we can do about 4,000 liters an hour per module on these modules, and we have larger modules that can do up to 6,500 liters an hour per module. So it's like building blocks. If you have an industry with bigger flow rate, you can just add more membranes. And like I said, you see on the left hand, the system is really compact, it's automatic, it's like a plug and play system. We drop it off, you connect your in, out, and the system is fully automated. So there's nothing holding us back from the different sizes of filtration as well. Gerard has mentioned a little bit of Cape Town, what they're doing. Some of the biggest water reuse plants is currently in Cape Town. Zandvliet, Stellenbosch, Potsdam, which they're busy with, which is a 65 million litre water day plant. They're putting in ultrafiltration membranes, pressurized, and membrane bioreactors, which is ultrafiltration membranes for future reuse. And with Zandvliet, I think in 2026 the tender will come out for that reuse plant. That will be 70 millimeters a day. So that's part of Cape Town's total water plan. So they are doing water reuse applications that they're planning. The first doing the first part and then the next. and the diesel plant, they are planning the 50 to 70 MLD as part of their water resource plan. So you have to look at the entire water plan. You can't not just do desalination. You can't just do water treatment of the sources that is there. We have to look at how we can reuse our grey water and our black water most effectively. We're doing it currently. Both at West, at one stage, didn't have any water. Then there was a system installed, so they're going through the conventional water treatment systems, sand filtration at the end, ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, and then remineralization and chlorine dose disinfection, drinking water into the town. And that is a 1.7 million litre plant. So we are currently doing it in South Africa as well, but we're a bit behind the international standard. If you look at countries like Singapore, which is an island, they're still getting some water from the mainland, but most of their water is either seawater desalination or new water. And they call it new water, but it's basically sewage water being treated back to drinking water. In our country, there's a stigma to it because in Cape Town they call it toilet to tap. And people think, no, we can't drink this. Yes, you can if you use the right technologies. And we are doing it in South Africa already. So I always say, think wise, use water twice. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are your capacities regarding acid mine drainage reuse? For example, we've got a prospective tenant that actually requires 2,500 kiloliters of water per day. But on an acid mine drainage site where we have access to all that water, but it's just we need to find a financially viable model of actually creating that plant and treating all the water so that they can actually use it.
We don't have restraints or capacities. There's no restraints because most of the plants we build, the membrane plants, isn't building blocks. So even if they say they want to start now with 50 milliliters a day or 25 milliliters a day, we can add on building blocks to it as they grow into it to make it more financially viable. Because if you say it's going to cost you 500 million, for example, then they say, oh, that's lots of money, but we can start with 50 and start and then do the building blocks, because most of the times the plants are anyway built in those type of trains. We have a train that can do a certain volume and another train because they have to have some, not spare capacity, but they have to have a system where if one system is down because of they're doing backwashing or cleaning, the other system is still running. You're welcome. If you, sorry. Yes, sir.
I have a general question which is more related to governance. The first speaker mentioned that South Africa relies on the so,
yeah, please.
Thank you. So I was saying that I have a general question which is a bit more governance related. So the first speaker was saying that South Africa relies heavily on the Lesotho in terms of water supply. So what will then happen if maybe by any chance we have a bilateral discord with Lesotho and Lesotho decides that we are no longer going to supply water to South Africa? Can South Africa be able to survive without getting water from Lesotho? And if that's the case, how long can we survive? Do we have other alternatives? I heard you now mentioning that we are a bit behind in terms of international standards. You mentioned that countries like Ireland, for example, are now sourcing their waters from the sea. Can we use that as an alternative? Is government showing interest in terms of supporting that initiative? That's the first question. The second one, regarding the water crisis that we're now seeing in Joburg, I had one analyst on TV saying that about 40% of our water get lost in the system. So one of the solutions that we put forward is that we need to improve our infrastructure. So does the improvement of infrastructure, is the improvement of infrastructure the only solution that we should consider, or there are other solutions that we can maybe consider in terms of resolving a problem that is currently being faced in Joburg? That's the second question. The last one, the first speaker mentioned that water is more expensive in Joburg than it is in other municipalities and other provinces. And then the second speaker also showed a slide indicating that in Pretoria and in Ekurhuleni we are relying on VAL for the supply of water. So why is then that water is more expensive in Joburg than it is in Pretoria and Ekurhuleni, given the distance between Pretoria to VAL? Is it only informed by legislations, or there are other factors that informs that pricing or decision by municipalities? Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer all the questions. So first, I don't want to answer for government. So I don't want to answer for government because I mainly deal with private entities and homeowners and developers. But I think there's lots of contracts and things in place with the city for the water supply. Obviously, it's a mutual relationship. But let's say worst case scenario that happens. Yes, in South Africa, there is opportunities and there is ways, but they'll have to jump quickly. And that's why I talked earlier about the total water solution. You can't look at one. Yes, water desalination is one, but that's for cities along the coast. And there's lots of water reuse applications that we can jump on now, but lots of our other provinces hasn't put in big membrane plants or water reuse type of starting actions like Cape Town has done with Malmesbury, Potsdam, Zandvliet. Potsdam is being built now, Zandvliet and Stellenbosch. So all our big waste water treatment plants can go a step further and put in the new technology and go through step one and put in MBR and ultrafiltration membranes, and that's one step away from RO membranes to reuse those water into our water sources. In California, for example, where they had so many years of drought, they commissioned a massive desalination plant, because right next to the coast. But by the time that desalination plant was finished building, which that took 5-6 years, the drought was over, which has happened to Cape Town as well. But they said, no, the desalination plant's still going to run, and we're going to fill on our aquifers to make sure we have water storage available for if this happens again. Because even the desalination plant doesn't give us enough water, because most of our water, like you know, is used for irrigation. So if we don't have farmers that have irrigation can produce food for us, we're in dire straits, not just from a water supply side. So that's the first side of it. So there is opportunities for water reuse we can do. And obviously, and also going in personal use where, you know, like Gerard has said as well, where you can personally do rainwater harvesting, do your sewage treatment, do grey water reuse. That takes the stress off municipalities as well, not just on the supplying of drinking water, but also the handling of sewage water, because their systems is not built to handle the amount of sewage we're sending them. Williefontein is an example. You know, last I saw in the documents that we've been seeing, some of the meetings we've been involved in, they can treat 70 MLD, but there's been over 100 MLD being sent to that Advac plant. You know, it's not fair to them, and they are busy trying to upgrade as they have the finances. But developments are still going on, people are still sending lots of water into the sewage network, and stormwater is going on when rain is coming. So there's lots of combinations. On the second one, just have to remember exactly what you asked, but I think it was on... Okay, the 40%, yeah. So yes, we have to fix our pipes. That's a given. But how long is it going to take? You know, unfortunately, government has made it a bit difficult for us because they haven't looked after our power supply, and we see even now again the results coming. Where's our infrastructure? most of the times it's preventative maintenance happening now. Oh, there's a pipe broken in Joburg, let's go fix it. It's fixed. These people haven't been with water for a week and a half. That's one part. Fixing the massive infrastructure or doing upgrading or maintenance will take a while. It take a while. So we have to look at decentralized systems, working with private companies to do some solutions for themselves now to take that burden off the municipalities, because even if they're all working well now and trying to catch up, it's going to take a long time. And unfortunately, there's a difference between power and water. With power, we know we have no lights, let's buy solar panels, let's put in batteries, let's put in a generator. But people think because if we open the tap, the water is coming out, it's all fine. It's not fine. People are very proactive, waiting. If they see not water coming out, then they'll start jumping. What must we do? Then it's too late. So it's better to be preventative and put things in place for yourself or for property developments to become more self-sustainable on power and water, and it'll take the strain off the grids on water and power for everybody. And the last question you asked about pricing of water. Okay, the differences. Yes, Rand Water isn't vereniging, it pumps water up to different places. And it goes to municipalities. What the municipality charge you is what it costs them to treat it again and how they can distribute it. So every municipality is going to charge something different. If you go to the northwest in Potchefstroom, they charge 20 Rand per kiloliter. Somewhere about there. So in different rural areas it might be cheaper. Why the city in Cape Town is so heavily charged, you have to look at what it's costing to give it to the customers. But everyone is working on a different model. That's why it's different. So in Cape Town, at one stage in day zero time, 2018, 2019, they were really charging people because you're under restrictions, and if you're taking water, you are really paying for the water. So, it depends on different municipalities and what the situation is and what they see their cost is to provide water to you. Yes, we have to try and bring it off, but if you look at the graph the last 20 years, our water pricing has gone much higher up in percentage-wise than power. But we're not feeling it as much as on the power side. Sorry, one question.
It's not a question, I'm just going to add on to that.
Sorry.
So, working from my perspective, what I understand obviously is that water is extracted from the Vaal River, which is quite heavily polluted. And the more polluted rivers are, the more it's going to cost in terms of treatment. So the higher the price is going to go. So, while people do the song and dance and a toy about the tap water, and they're always questioning the dam levels, they're not considering the processes that take place in between.
No.
Because no one's going to go to the Vaal River and drink with a straw. It's crazy, you can't. So there are these chemical processes that happen, and it's very, very important. So the clean our rivers are, and that again stresses the importance of us reducing.
That's me. You have to stay there.
It stresses the importance of us taking the load off of our wastewater treatment plants, because that is automatically going to improve the quality of our rivers, and that will decrease. Because at the end of the day, who pays? We pay. The end user pays. The higher the prices get, the higher the price. We don't have a choice. We have to pay. That's what the price is. So that's my input from that side.
Yeah. Yes.
That water doesn't come from nowhere.
Yes.
Somebody needs to pay for it. So if it gets recovered out of the higher end users who are using more than 60 litres an hour, they're the guys basically subsidising the guys who are getting free.
Yes.
You've got more informal housing in the COJ area. Those are all factors that actually need to be accounted for, because the water isn't free.
No.
Everything needs to be accounted for in that entire cycle process. Eventually it just gets recovered from different areas, and mostly it's just the end users paying the 56 kiloliters, or 56 Rand a kiloliter on the commercial
Yeah.
It's just on the commercial scale where they are actually like recovering it just from the people who can actually afford it.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, it's totally right, because if we have some commercial guys we work with, obviously they.
Just wait. Somebody else wants
Okay.
to ask a question. Yes. So
Yeah,
you
John,
can
I'm just answering him.
respond
Yeah,
to both.
yeah, okay.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's all very important. So one question that I'm having is how far are you with maybe to maybe make a partnership to save our country as a whole? Because if we could take a look, we're in a scarce crisis as a country. So this is a solution, this is a future. So I just wanted to know about that. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, all water belongs to the government. So the Department of Water and Sanitation is responsible for all big water type projects. So even the big projects in Cape Town is going through government. So they appoint consulting engineers to do the feasibility studies. Then they put out a tender. People tender for it. Big companies, mostly sometimes local. Well, it must be local content, but with international support. And they build and install these plants. For example, Potsdam now is a 6 billion rand plant, which is about 3 billion for the civil side and 3 billion for the mechanical side. So it's lots of money. So, but government, if it's about water treatment and water supply for the masses, for private use, government must do it because they own the water. You're not allowed to extract water out of a bowl and sell it. You have to get a water license and they must approve it. So, that's where government has to drive these type of water requirements, So that's what they have with, obviously with Rand Water, Magalies, all these guys treating the water. And they have the decision makers going to the newer technologies. We've represented them with ultrafiltration membranes 20 years ago. And there's not one plant in the country that's using newer technologies, membrane technologies for water treatment on municipal scale. So what does that tell you? Private companies know what the quality is. They know how to install. Private companies are doing lots of things for reuse, using the current water sources, and treating it to a certain spec that they require for their factory or whatever they're manufacturing. But the government needs to look at the newer technologies and work with local companies and international companies together to get this problem solved. So, and the solutions are there. It's not the problem, the solutions are not the problem. Well, yeah, it's the last question. Okay, so this is the last question, and afterwards you can talk.
The question is
comment. Okay.
My brother asked about water governance, and we try to be too technical, and one thing that we need to be to take note of is Cape Town, at the end of the day, if we don't have to talk water politics, but we have to go there sometimes. Provincial is one political party, locally is the same political party, so the decision making, it aligns nicely with the ideas. So you come to Gauteng, province is run by a different political party, municipalities are run by another different political party. So the ideas, even if are well and good, we've got industries that are there, technology that talks to that, and there's a case point in Cape Town that we can refer to. But now there is an issue of water politics or governance. That is a problem. That's why I'm saying my brother asked about water governance. You're quite right. The issue of if they close the water, we're still going to have enough water to supply our communities. But they have taken our communities into confidence and actually tell them that reuse your water. National Department is always talking about water conservation, water demand management strategy. They've been saying we need to reduce our reliance on the so-called on valve. But but then the general public don't know about them because it's not being workshop. And who's supposed to be there? Even if you change the bylaw, so Cape Town worked on this thing way back, 2000 when they were still comfortable, and they were ready when day zero hit them. We were not ready in Gauteng because we know we've got that content. That's the difference. So that's why I'm saying, my brother asked about what I'm saying, we need to answer the question practically so that the general public can understand that us residents we need to be prepared to work with the government. Even if there's politics in the next, but are we prepared to do on-site treatment in the next? How much will it cost and what's the payback period and all?
Yeah.
That's what the things that we need to talk about. Thanks.
Okay, turn please.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Henk, for that great talk. I have a little brag point. Just about my own personal water bill last month. I have a close to 2,000 square piece of property, and I caught a lot of rain. And my bill came to 102. 102. I mean, you don't get that. Oh, okay. Wow! So it's something that you can do. I mean, we have a big property and it's a lot of garden. It's phenomenal. It's not just me either, you know, there's 4 of us on the property, so it's quite something and it's really an achievable thing if you just become more conscious of your water usage and then obviously just try and catch the rain, use the rain, you know, it will help. Alright, but I know we've gone way over time that we wanted.
Thanks.
Thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. And I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the speakers. We've talked a lot about water conservation, water reuse, all sorts of saving water, the big things. Now, I want us to think of the little things. Little drops. I believe in little drops. Especially in winter. How many of us have this practice of going to the bath, we put on the shower, and we just leave, waiting for the shower to get warm? What do we do with that water? How many of us? How many of us are brushing our teeth? I will open the taps. I will just let it flow while we're doing this. Those are the little things. If you just think about it, I force my children. I put a 15-liter bucket in every bathroom. When you put on the shower, what is going to get home? Collect it in the bucket. And I tell you, with every shower